past and those who have worked alongside us and for us. So on behalf of the 97,000 souls who call Federal Way home, we say thank you to Frank and to his family for sharing his time with us. Now we have the Chief of Police who will give a commendation medal to a police explorer. Chief?
Good evening, Mayor Farrell, Deputy Mayor Honda, members of the council. Standing next to me is Anna Murphy. She's a Police Explorer Commander with our agency. It is my pleasure to recognize and present Anna this evening with the Police Chief's Commendation Medal for her exceptional service to our agency and to our community. Anna has served the Federal Way Police Department as an explorer for the past 4 years. Anna started as an explorer, has risen through the ranks, and currently holds the position of Explorer Commander, which is the highest rank within the Explorer program. Anna's dedication to the department is second to none. Anna has dedicated countless hours attending events and representing the Federal Way Police Department in an exemplary manner, contributing significantly to the police community relations. Anna has been the go-to person within the department when someone needs a project completed, whether it is in records, evidence, administration, criminal investigations, or the quartermaster. Anna could be counted upon to get the job done. Some of the words to describe Anna are amazing, rock star, a godsend, incredible, just to name a few. Anna came to our agency as a shy teen who was unsure if police work was for her. Today, Anna has emerged as a confident leader who is determined to become a police officer. Anna assisted our agency by attending numerous community events, charity events, and logging countless hours on ride-alongs and fingerprinting citizens in our lobby week after week. Anna did this while maintaining good grades in college-level coursework and playing varsity basketball at her high school. Anna will soon leave the Explorer program and serve our country in the United States Air Force. The Federal Way Police Department is proud to have had Anna as a police explorer. Anna's effort to serve the police department and our community for the past 4 years was exceptional and far exceeds what is expected of a police explorer in a non-paid capacity. I am pleased to present the Police Chief Commendation Medal to Police Explorer Commander Anna Murphy. Please join me in thanking Anna for outstanding service to our community.
So I was told that to come to the city council meeting last week. That's all I was told. So this is the most honored thing that I've ever experienced. Said I wasn't gonna cry, but I thank you, Chief. It's like all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. We've got Arts Commission certificates of appointment. Councilmember Johnson.
So we had a series of tremendous interviews, and we have a great group of folks that are brilliant minds that are joining or rededicating themselves to our Arts Commission. So I would like to invite Daniel Hirschman, Vicki Chenoweth, Iveta Felsenberg, Karen Brugato, and James Stiles to come forward to accept their certificate of appointments to the Arts Commission. I would also like to thank and recognize Mary Blacker and Allison Soma, who have also been appointed to the Arts Commission but were unable to attend tonight's meeting. So we have Daniel Hirschman, Vicki Chenoweth, Iveta Felsenberg, Karen Brugato, and James Stiles.
Next, we've got a briefing by the King County Housing Authority Executive Director, Stephen Norman.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, honorable members of the council. My name is Stephen Norman. I serve as the Executive Director of the King County Housing Authority. I'm delighted to be here tonight. When this slot was initially booked, it was to open a conversation around the issue of source of income discrimination ordinances. As you are aware, in the last year and a half, we've seen ordinances passed by Kent, Auburn, Renton, and Tukwila as rising issue in the community. I'm pleased to report tonight that there has been good progress made in Olympia, and the issue of having to pass ordinances on a city-by-city level in King County may be rendered moot. There is, I think, close to a consensus between House and Senate versions of a bill, which have also received a nod from the Rental Housing Association. So I think there is very close to some level of agreement on what that could look like. However, I did want to take the opportunity to be here tonight to talk to you a little bit about both the King County Housing Authority's Section 8 footprint in the city of Federal Way, what is involved in source of income discrimination statutes, and I think most importantly, answer any questions that you may have. In brief, the Housing Authority supports close to 1,800 households in Federal Way through the Section 8 program. And this represents about 8.7% of the Section 8 households who are supported in the Seattle-King County area. The good news, of course, is that the regional economy is continuing to expand. The bad news is no one has ever been able to separate out prosperity from population growth, and there's continued demand. Supply has not kept up, and lowering vacancy rates, rising rents. Currently, rents are rising more quickly in South King County than in any other part of the county, including the east side. And there is virtually no family earning below 30% of AMI that is not paying 50% or more of their household income in rent unless they are receiving rental assistance of some form. So who is on the Section 8 program of these 1,800 households? 26% of these are elderly, most of them on Social Security, and that's about it in terms of income. About 30% are disabled, and one of our growing populations of disabled that we're housing are homeless veterans, and we have some 113 homeless veterans who we are serving through the Section 8 program. A number of them, I'm very pleased to say, in partnership with the city and multi-service center at the facility that we were able to cut the ribbon on last year. So thank you all for that. 44% are families, and this includes domestic violence programs and an array of other programs that we work with to essentially keep families stably housed and off the streets. These families include over 1,900 children, and this is certainly one of our core focuses is on responding to the need for stable housing for children in the community. A lot of the Section 8 goes to families who already live in a community, and what it does is it enables them to stay in the housing they're in. I think we're all seeing the level of housing instability that rising rents and shelter burdens are creating across the county. Ultimately, this is resulting in homelessness for school children. And the Federal Way School District last year reported some 368 homeless children in the classrooms. And on top of children who are actually homeless are children who are being transferred from one classroom to another because the family's housing is not stable. They're not homeless yet, but they're not in one place. And what I hear increasingly across South County from teachers and superintendents is the level of turnover and churn in the classrooms is one of the major impediments to delivering quality education in our classrooms. So these are the kind of issues that we are attempting to address through the Section 8 program. Source of income discrimination, I will tell you what it is not. It is not rent control. It essentially, landlords charge what they can charge on the market for a unit. If it's within the guidelines that we have and the resident can afford it, then they can rent that unit. If it is higher than the Section 8 program allows, then no landlord is being asked to reduce the amount of rent in order to take a Section 8 client. This is simply saying on units where the market rent is within the allowable subsidies in the Section 8 program, and for Federal Way, for two-bedroom, in some parts of the East Federal Way, it's about $1,400 a month. In West Federal Way, it's about $1,475 a month. And essentially, we do zip code by zip code payment standards that reflect about 40th percentile of the market in those communities. And we understand very well that there is housing that is priced out of reach, and no landlord is asked to either stay at that payment standard initially, nor to essentially abstain from raising rents as the market goes up. If it's being raised within the payment standard, the tenant can stay, or if it's above the payment standard, but the tenant can find additional money to pay it outside of the federal subsidy, well and good. If it's beyond the reach of the program, then we understand absolutely that the landlord has a right to get what he can for his unit, and the tenant will simply have to find a cheaper unit to live in. The other thing it is it's not a requirement that they take every Section 8 tenant and that there is no screening. What the source of income discrimination does is it essentially says that you have to have a level playing field, that you can apply the same screening criteria that you do to every other tenant to the Section 8 applicant. No more, no less. So in other words, if this is something that you would normally screen somebody out for, then you can screen out a Section 8 tenant. What it intends to do is avoid a situation where a landlord says, simply because you are on the Section 8 program, we choose not to rent to you. One of the ways in which this has come up that has been of real concern to many cities is that you see increasingly some of the larger complexes are being owned by national equity firms and national property management firms, where they may decide at a headquarters on the East Coast that they don't want to deal with the Section 8 program. And every Section 8 household in that complex will get a letter that basically says, we're not renewing your lease, you've not violated any of the lease terms, you've paid your rent, we've simply decided we're no longer participating in the program. And we've seen wholesale dislocation of long-standing tenants in a community, seniors, disabled, families with children who are in the local schools. So these are really the situations that source of income is intended to address. Really, in deference to your time, I know you've had a long day. I'll stop here, but I'm very happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Council, any questions? All right. Councilmember Sefadossin.
Not a question, just a statement. And Stephen happens to be my executive director as an employee at King County Housing Authority. And one thing, this is important and valid because we've been talking, Washington Can has been here talking about landlords that are not responsive to their residents or their tenants' needs. And so one thing I'm proud to say is that King County Housing Authority has an outstanding buildings and facilities and housing units that are just incredible to live in. So I'm proud to say that. But also one thing that we're also concerned about is homelessness here in our city and throughout the region and throughout nationwide. And without this program, a lot of people would be homeless. And so I think it's very important that we recognize the importance of it. A lot of people are against Section 8 voucher holders or have this notion or perception that Section 8 voucher holders are irresponsible, bad tenants. And so I'm glad you're here to hopefully get the word out that that's not the case.
Yeah.
And
What we find, in fact, is that Section 8 households actually have a lot more to lose, because not only if they violate the lease or they violate the law do they lose their housing, they also lose their subsidy. And there is a widespread misconception where we get calls every day of the week about this Section 8 house or that Section 8 house, and when we check the records, it has nothing to do with the Section 8 program. So there tends to be a conflation, candidly, of problems in the community in Section 8 that is simply not borne out in the facts. We work closely with the Federal Way Police Department, and I rely on the city and the police department to let us know we act quickly in any situation where we feel that the household is not living up to the standards that we in the community expect.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. Now moving on to Mayor's Emerging Issues and Report. We are hosting the Federal Way here on March 28th at 2:30 p.m. in Council Chambers, the Highline Forum. And Yarden, can you please approach the podium and talk about what the Highline Forum is, what it means, and where we're at right now in the task force on our Safe and Quiet Skies initiative.
Thank you, Mayor Farrell. So the Highline Forum was a forum that was developed 5 to 10 years ago that resulted originally from concerns about the third runway that was being developed. And since that issue is now basically moot, it's now a forum that exists to discuss issues of mutual concern between the member organizations, which are the Port of Seattle, Highline College, Highline School District, and the cities of Federal Way, Burien, Des Moines, Normandy Park, Tukwila, and SeaTac. The issues, obviously, of most concern have to do with impacts of the airport, increased air traffic, the upcoming Sustainable Airport Master Plan that the airport's going to be starting environmental review on in the coming months. But in addition, some of the shared issues deal as well with economic development interests that are shared by all the member organizations. So the City of Federal Way has been one of the original members of the Highline Forum, and the forum is primarily for elected officials and for senior staff as well. Mayor Farrell is the representative as the elected official on Highline Forum, with Councilmember Lydia Acefa Dawson as the alternate who comes, and then I am the designate representative for the staff member, and have been attending meetings last year. I did miss the last one for a personal issue that I had, but other than that, I was attending every meeting last year. And those meetings are held every other month, 2:30 to 4:30 on the 4th. I think it's the 4th Wednesday of each month, if I remember correctly. And each city or constituent organization can host a meeting. So Mayor Farrell authorized that the next meeting, which is to be held on March 28th, 2:30 to 4:30, will be hosted by the City of Federal Way here in the City Council chambers. And the issues, I know that at the last meeting of the Highline Forum, which unfortunately, like I said, for a personal kind of emergency situation, I had family issue, I was not able to attend, but my understanding was that the port was giving a presentation that answered a number of questions that had been posed about increasing air traffic. The final question that they had, there was a series of 5 questions, was going to be answered at the next meeting. So there's likely to be sort of enhanced interest. It is open to the public, and they do take public comments similar to a city council meeting. With respect to our own AIRS task force, the task force was chaired by Mayor Farrell at a special meeting a couple weeks ago to regroup. And Mayor Farrell chaired that meeting himself. We're basically, including myself, who's been Mayor Farrell's representative, direct representative as a staff person on the task force, have split up tasks about what will go into the final report, including I will be preparing some of the sections or vetting some of those, or preparing some of those sections along with the volunteer task force members. We actually had scheduled another meeting for tomorrow night that may be rescheduled. I've just been in correspondence with some of the members, but the goal at this point is that there will be a report issued by the end of March with a sort of an analysis of the history of the issues that we've had that cities around here have had with the airport, including the City of Federal Way. Concerns that have been raised by community people from the city and other surrounding cities over the last couple of years, where we go from here, the upcoming environmental review on the Sustainable Airport Master Plan, and most importantly, a series of recommendations as to what the city Federal Way, meaning the mayor and the city council, would be best advised to do in response to some of the concerns that have been raised about impacts of increased air travel, noise, health, economic, and so on. So we sort of set ourselves a pretty firm deadline. And Mayor Farrell has authorized that at certain points that I will be sort of dedicated to that issue exclusively for periods of time, and we'll work on some of the legal research that's needed, other research that will be needed on that. And again, we're targeting to have a report issued by the end of March.
And Councilmember, I'll call in just a moment, but it is important to be strategic in how we approach this, especially it's a multidimensional an issue with the federal FAA, the local port, different communities, and how we approach it in the legislature. I personally met with Congressman Adam Smith, along with the former chair of the task force, John Reesing, and have federal legislation pending about particulates that are coming in, and very fine particulates, and what the impact that has. There's a lot of work being done regionally on this issue, and in fact, we have one of the co-chairs, or one of the chairs of one of those groups, Sheila Brush, who's going to be our first speaker tonight. And so it's very important that we approach this in a very strategic fashion, and also link up arms with our neighboring communities and organizations. So I wanted to make sure that we had that addressed in this. Councilmember Moore, did you have a quick question?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Yarden, you're certainly a man of all different traits, and so I appreciate all your dedication and talent that you have. With the Federal Way Highline and the Highline Forum, is there going to be a community member that's going to be attending? Because I've heard staff, I heard elected officials. Is there going to be a community member?
Let me answer. There's actually, it's a little bit bureaucratic sounding, but there was a separate partially because of the lack of community representation on the Highline Forum, but not the only reason. There's a separate a group that was formed over the course of the second half of last year that was originally at the what's the word I'm looking for? The port had originally asked if this would be of interest, and got together the constituents of Highline Forum. Again, the 6 cities that I named before, the port, in this case not Highline College or the school district, but in addition the FAA, 2 of the major airlines, Alaska Airlines as well as Delta Airlines, and they're trying to also get a cargo carrier, although I don't think they've been successful so far, to actually have another group called START, which stands for SeaTech Airport Stakeholders Roundtable, I believe is what it stands for, if I remember correctly. And that group does include, and the whole idea of that group does not include elected officials, but does include a senior staff member plus 2 members of the community from each of the constituent cities. That group is designed to meet on the off month, the month that Highline Forum does not meet, so that it doesn't overlap with that. So, and those meetings will be held. The first one was scheduled for February 28th. Those will be held in the evening, not 2:30 to 4:30. I remember correctly, it starts at 6. I think it's 6, if I remember correctly. And it'll be all held at the port. Mayor Farrell appointed me to be the staff representative, and he appointed John Reesing and Chris Hall. John Reesing being the former chair of the task force, and Chris Hall being a community member in the Marine Hills neighborhood that's actually personally an expert at some of these issues because he's an engineer that works on flight paths. So, and
Chris Hall is actually not only part of our individual,
Right.
on the task force I put together,
Right.
but he's also part of the Marine Hills citizen group
Right.
that's been meeting as well. And he's got a professional expertise on the issue, so he's a perfect person.
Right, so Mayor Farrell appointed those 2 individuals to be the community people. So, I mean, I'm sorry, it's a long-winded answer. Highline does not have community representatives. The START does. That'll be starting in February 28th. Although, like I said, Highline Forum is open to the public, does have public comments, and I don't know, Councilmember Asapa Dawson can maybe add something on this if wanted, but my experience is that the people who chair Highline Forum are very liberal about recruiting or allowing participation from anyone who's there, not just the member. That's been my experience that I've seen. So so there's definitely a chance for community input.
And we've got a resident here, Sue Peterson, who I believe is going to be talking later, who shows up. She's here tonight, and she shows up to those events, those hearings as well.
Right, and I'm very careful. I pay attention to all the public comments that are made. I know that there, again, like I said, I don't think I missed any meeting last year. I did miss the last one for a personal reason. So, but in any case, does that answer your question, Councilmember Moore?
We'll make sure that, thank you, Yarden, we'll make sure when those recommendations are set forth, they'll be provided to the council, the community, and then we'll start thinking about strategically how we move forward to make sure that Federal Way is well-positioned as we navigate our way through that. Thank you, Yarden. Councilmember Copang.
Yarden, thank you for the report. I think Mayor and Yarden, I know both of you have worked on this issue. This is a very important issue to the community of Federal Way, and it certainly justifies the efforts. I am very much looking forward to the report that's going to be generated as a result of all the effort that's been put in by the community members that have served as volunteers, and obviously yourself as well, and the mayor. But you said the end of March. Are we looking at a specific date that you're targeting for the end of March?
Well, I would say the last day, March 31st.
Okay,
but
March 30th. We'll say March 30th. Which is, March 31st is Saturday. So
Okay. Okay, so I guess it would be the, I don't know, Mayor, do you?
email works on Saturday. If you want to work on Saturday,
He's not allowed to work on Saturday.
Okay, that's right. You can't.
I guess I would say March 3rd. I will say that one of our key task force members, Mr. Berger, is actually scheduled to be on an out-of-town vacation for the last 2 weeks, so we're really hoping on moving forward on this quickly, so.
Okay, well, good. I think there's a lot of people in the community that are very interested in what the report is, and I think that the level of I like that we're collaborating with the cities around the airport, but I think we can even do more, and I look forward to us looking at that as part of our strategic plan going forward.
Councilmember Duclos?
Yeah, I agree that we need to look at doing more and how we can get there. And actually, I've put it on the FEDERAC agenda
Right.
for this month.
There's a bill before the legislature about,
It's actually, it was not actually a bill, it was a.
Proviso.
Proviso, thank you. And I believe it did, from what I just got news today, that it did pass the House, and at the House budget, and I'm not sure about the Senate budget, but well, yeah, okay, so the House budget, I think, passed it for the full 500, which was requested, and I think the Senate budget was 300, so that'll have to be reconciled. The bill would supply, well, what was originally wanted was $500,000 in state funding that would then have to be matched by the 6 neighboring cities. CTEC's already committed, the city of CTEC's already committed to $250,000. They would be looking for an additional $50,000 from each of the other 5 Highline Forum cities for a total of a $500,000 match, so a total of $1 million that would go towards the studying of impacts. And that is so that proviso, like I said, has passed the House with the full 500, passed the Senate with 300, so the final will still have to be determined on that. And there is another study, I don't know if that the Puget Sound Regional Council is looking at that will be discussed this week as well.
And I'll be there on Thursday at the Puget Sound Regional Council to address the city's interest in that issue. Councilmember Asefa Dawson, then Deputy Mayor Burbridge. Gosh, I said it's Deputy Mayor Honda.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I've been attending the meetings, and last week, actually, I went to the Des Moines Aviation Committee meeting, which Federal Way is not a part of, but they are looking at the master plan, the airport master plan, and they also talked about the proviso that you just mentioned, and the budget proviso. Yeah. And those cities are really pulling together their resources to look at all the different impacts that the airport has, like the economic impact, the property value impact, and all the different impacts that they're looking at. And so that information we will have access to, so it would be great that we incorporate that into what we're doing as we move forward with this process. So.
Very good, thank you. Deputy Mayor Honda.
Thank you. I believe the city of Des Moines just voted to add the $50,000.
Right. All right, so that's gonna come up in committee, and I do want to let everybody know that I did travel down to Joint Base Lewis McChord, met with the commanders of that wing command to address, along with Yarden, John Reesing, another individual in our Quiet Skies task force, and we talked to the Air Force about making sure that their flyovers in the southern and southwestern portion of our cities that they be cognizant of the impacts that they're having at altitudes. And so we're working with the United States Air Force as well. And they showed us their flight patterns and their, have committed to us to do everything they can to mitigate impacts in our community. So that's important as well.
And I believe that the other task force member, Britt Oleg, who was there, will be working on that section of the report.
That's right. Councilmember Duclos?
Oh, I was just going to say, McCord is a great facility, but I have to talk about an experience I had one time. I was going down to Tacoma. I was going down by the tide flats, and all of a sudden I saw this strange plane flying, and it was in a V shape, and it was the secret stealth plane.
Ah.
And there I was, right in front of it.
Yeah, it has. We have been getting quite a number of complaints. That's why, at the request, Britt Oleg, one of our task force members, and former Chair John Reesing, that's why we went down there and engaged them. And they were very, let's just say, receptive, respectful. I think they had 4 or 5 colonels in the room that were the command colonel and then like 3 or 4 others.
There were 2 sub-commanders, and there were several other officers as well.
They took the meeting very seriously, and I think that John has John Reesing, we're really fortunate to have involved and who have appointed to start now, has a very good concept, and I think they're very well aware of it as well, is that in certain communities around the country, the Air Force has lost the support of the people around it because of the impacts. So they're very sensitive and very cognizant of those sort of impacts. And so it's a good partnership that has been formed, and you know, they're obviously working for our benefit, but want to make sure that they are good neighbors as well. So that's just one piece of the puzzle. Thank you, Yarden.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So at the last city council meeting, I promised to have reports back to you on the Day Center and New Hope Shelter. We have those reports. I do. The first one we're going to talk about is the Day Center update, and we'll have Deputy Chief Neal and Community Services Manager Jeff Watson address first the Day Center update. I do want to let everybody know that I personally went out to both of those locations, not this past Friday, but the Friday before, which would have been, I believe, the Friday after that last council meeting, and went out to New Hope Shelter, personally inspected the grounds, personally inspected the shelter and the wooded area behind, and then on that same evening, Friday the 9th, went over to 13th Place, went and took another look at the Day Center, talked to the personnel there, talked to some folks that use it, talked to Jackie Muth, who spoke at one of our recent council meetings. And then I want to let everybody know that just today, we gathered up a significant number of those individual businesses that have been affected and that are concerned about the Day Center, its impact on that area. I met with them personally in Mr. Jarvis's office space over there at Jackie Muth's building. And we had a very productive meeting that lasted probably about an hour and a half over at that location, and we talked about a number of these issues. And so at that, I wanted to let you know that there's been a lot of work, a lot of communication with businesses and neighbors about this. With that set up, Deputy Chief Neal.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Council. I'm here tonight with Human Services Manager Jeff Watson to provide some information specifically associated with the Day Center and then as well as the New Hope Shelter. And it's important to say in the beginning that this is a very narrow focus that I'm presenting tonight, and really it has to do with issues and crime related not just to the Day Center, but the RDs, or what we call the reporting districts, right around these centers. So we realized back in 2016 that we were going to need to have systems in place to address homelessness in Federal Way. Certainly it wasn't new to us, but at the mayor's direction, we put together the initiative on homeless, which is ongoing today, and this is simply of part of that, and I'm going to give a little bit of insight on what's been going on as opposed to 2017 when it comes to the crime rates and the things that have happened around the center and around the brand new shelter as opposed to 2016. So back when we started this initiative, we had some primary concerns, and they're still applicable today, which is crime and safety and property damage and trespassing issues. And again, this is a narrow focus on these types of issues. So the contributing factors to what's going on around the area of 336 and 13th South is that shelters and day centers, similar outreach programs attract homeless who come to take advantage of the offered resources. That seems like a common sense statement, and certainly it's true that the day center is there for the homeless, the people that need those services to come. Something that comes along with that is that the homeless will try to camp as close to these resources as they can, to include city streets, parks, vacant land, and surrounding buildings. So they want to be as close to the resources as they possibly can. So what happens is, in this specific area, is the local businesses and neighborhoods feel the direct impact of the homeless, which I'm going to say is a migration every day. And the migration is they come from their camps, they go to the day center to receive their resources and do the things that they're supposed to do there. And then when the doors close, they migrate back to their camps. So I have a map here, and I know it's difficult to see, but the reason that I have it here is to illustrate kind of what I'm talking about. The little box there, the yellow or the green box, is the day center, and you can see some of these red circles. These are homeless camps that were known homeless camps. Some of them have been cleared, but if you look at these, you will see a semicircle around the day center. So it's just to illustrate that anywhere where there is some sort of cover, trees, brush, that sort of thing, is where the homeless are going to camp to be close to the day center. So as far as crime and calls for service, which they're related, but they're really two different things. The reporting districts right around the day center at 13th and 336 has seen an increase of 71% in our crime data. So those are crimes committed. That's the increase in 2017 from 2016 for the same reporting districts. Calls for service, which can include other generic calls which aren't necessarily crime, was increased by 52% for the same area. And it can be attributed to the influx of the homeless population that, as I say, are migrating, if you will, to and from the day center on a daily basis. This, to address this, certainly, and it's not just police resources, there's a tremendous increase in resources required from all departments in the city when it comes to addressing these issues, not just at the day center, but all around the city. So what's been our response? The city response, just a week ago Friday, I believe it was the 9th, city representatives, the mayor, the police chief, we visited the staff at the day center, New Hope Shelter, and business owners last week to discuss ongoing efforts. As the mayor said, we also had a meeting with the business owners again today. The city's committed to working with all of the stakeholders to make a positive difference, and you must know that there are many stakeholders in this. Homelessness is a very complex situation. Not just one entity is going to, and I'm not going to say solve, I'm going to say mitigate the issues with homelessness. The police are certainly, we are going to continue to provide random patrols to deter undesirable or criminal activity. That's something that we addressed on a daily basis. And we are data-driven in that regard. When we receive data that shows there's an increase of some sort of crime or issues or undesirable behavior in a part of the city, then we address that in our meetings and ensure that we are sending our officers, in particular at night, to address those things. Also, code enforcement, public works, are going to give significant attention to address public safety issues, homelessness, encampments, cleanup, trash in the area, and that sort of thing. I can tell you that there has been a tremendous effort, and we have really had a lot of success as far as cleaning up camps in the city. Certainly, it's a much easier process when it's our land, when it's public land. It's a little more difficult when it's land owned by privately owned land. That's a little more difficult, but we have also had success through our other departments to encourage landowners to clean up parcels of land. Specifically, you might notice the large lot that is east of Kitt's Corner, 336 and Pacific Highway, that at the expense of the landowner, that was cleared, and also the brush was cut down to make it easier to see those who might want to camp there. We also took a look at New Hope Shelter, which is located 1411 6th Avenue South, I believe, is the address. And again, if you look at the circles, the yellow box is actually the New Hope Shelter, and some of the larger red boxes are where there either has been or are homeless camps. And again, even though the issue is not as significant in this area, it shows that wherever there's wooded areas, there's the possibility to have camps for the same reason. So the New Hope Church and surrounding reporting districts, the data that we pulled shows that crime is actually down 37% for those particular reporting districts. And that's in 2017 as compared to 2016. Calls for service have remained relatively flat, a little over 4% of an increase in calls for service in that same location. And the known homeless camps, in particular, there's a camp that we've been addressing right here at 312th and First. They have been there for some time. I'd be happy to answer questions or wait till Mr. Jeff Watson presents his.
Why don't we, just because of time, let's go ahead and Jeff Watson come up, give his presentation, and see if the council has any questions about either one. Thank you, Deputy Chief.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of the council. Certainly, Deputy Chief Neal paints a dark picture, but I also have to say that the news is certainly not all bad. The Day Center is providing necessary services for the homeless in Federal Way and doing so effectively. Just a little background, reminders for the council. The Day Center Coalition approached the city in 2014 initially to begin a conversation about establishing the Day Center, and the Day Center Coalition is made up of a number of groups and individuals in the city of Federal Way that have an interest in helping the homeless. Catholic Community Services became involved, and they actually operate the Day Center on behalf of the Day Center Coalition. The Day Center began operations in December of 2016. They serve adult men and women, and currently they are open Monday through Friday from 10 until 3 p.m. The kinds of services that they provide are somewhat reflective, again, of what Deputy Chief Neal said about the complexity of homelessness and the many challenges that go along with it. As you can see here, everything from laundry and showers to referrals to service providers, including shelter and housing. One of the certainly the most important things that this community and others want to do is help the homeless move to ultimately permanent housing. The services that have been provided to date since December of 2016, the Day Center has served over 1,100 clients. They have provided referrals for 107 of those, connections to community partners 145, referral to shelter 77, moved to permanent housing 38. You know, that seems like a little bit of a low number, but I think it's also indicative of the challenges regarding affordable housing and Going back to the executive director from the King County Housing Authority's comments, the availability and affordability of housing is difficult, and that doesn't make it easy. And 30 of them have seen an increase in income. The Day Center has some substantial community support. The Day Center Coalition continues to be active with regard to the Day Center. They provide advisory and fundraising support for the Day Center. There are 12 members on that advisory committee. There are community volunteers that serve actually during the operations, the daily operations of the Day Center. There are 25 members of the community that work in the Day Center in addition to the staff that Catholic Community Services provides. The volunteers have provided 2,400 hours of volunteer service in support of the Day Center and working with the homeless that are there. That concludes my presentation, and we're available to answer questions that council may have.
Okay, before we move on to questions, I do want to let everybody know that we're not just going to we didn't just do a listening tour with the businesses on 13th Place and the Day Center. Those conversations will continue, and we'll make sure that I've got some ideas about how we can work together and make sure that we address some of those concerns. So, and those conversations are ongoing. Council, do you have any questions about either one of these items? Deputy Mayor Honda. I'm working on it.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Jeff, can you report about how many families are staying at the New Hope shelter?
It varies a little bit each night, but I think the most that they have had is 4 families at any given evening.
I do want to say that, that's one of the things, thank you you just reminded me of something. When I toured the site, I could tell you that I saw in the middle, this is late afternoon, early evening, and was starting to be about dusk. I was there for probably about an hour. I didn't see anybody walking around the church, other than an individual who lives in that area. But there are 3 families that I think, it was a room, smaller than that area back there, that alcove that's back there that had about 11 cots that were not occupied at the time, and there was nobody there at the time. Again, this is about 5 or 6 o'clock at night. It was very modest, very small operation, and so really they can only have about 3 or 4 families at a time. And it's just Pastor Rick Miller and his wife. And they had one other individual helping them. It's a pretty modest footprint or operation, and so taking place at a church there.
Well, the shelter's open from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., so they can't come earlier. Unfortunately, and I don't know what you would do with your children after school in those hours between school and the time you can get to the shelter, but,
Well, the most important thing, and this is exactly why, and I appreciate you serving on HMCI, the Homeless Mothers and Children Initiative, the most important thing is to get these children and their parents out of the cold and out of their cars and for a place to lay their head at night. And so that's what the purpose of it is. But just in regard to whether this is attracting people during the day that are, that was not the case.
Yeah,
So-
that is the issue, though, the traffic during the day, especially in the business community.
Yeah.
They don't have any problem with the mothers and children or anything like that. It's the people that are driving away their businesses. They're people coming to them because of the damage and stuff that they do, not only to the people's cars coming there, but also to the surrounding businesses.
You bet.
So that's the issue.
All right, I think, and what I was referring to, Councilmember Duclos, is the church off 6th Avenue, in that residential area. Okay, all right, thank you. All right, so Councilmember Moore.
Thank you so much, Deputy Chief Steve Neal. I'm going to ask you the questions. Sure. First and foremost, and maybe this is a good clarification point for the mayor as well, and that this is what we've done this far. This isn't necessarily about what is the plan moving forward. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so I think that's a really important clarification for me. So a couple things. On that second slide of yours that you pointed out, you said something about some of the encampments have been cleared. So remind me again, how many total encampments do we have?
Oh, that's a fleeting number. It changes really on a
As of
daily
today?
basis. Yeah, there are camps that spring up overnight. But, and then some of them are cleared. Some people then move on, set up a camp somewhere else. So really, they change. The number changes. There's quite a few.
So the last number that you can recall?
Probably 30.
30, okay.
Well, we probably have split up or disbanded probably 2 dozen, is that right?
Oh, yeah, as I say, we've had tremendous success in clearing camps, but that doesn't stop them from reappearing. And so, really, again, as I talked about, we use data, people calling in, telling us there's a camp, so we try to go and address those camps around the city. And again, the presentation tonight is just really based on a very narrow focus on where the day center is, but really, we're talking citywide.
Right. Okay, and then moving on to the crime and call, well, actually, moving on to another question. So you briefly mentioned, and I think the mayor mentioned this as well, and that's, there was a meeting that you had today with the business owners and Catholic Community Services.
The Catholic Community Services was not there. We need to bring in the CCS.
Okay.
And the day center for folks. That's the next thing that needs to happen.
Okay, I guess I'm just really curious to find out what were the outcomes that kind of came out of that whole conversation. What, you know?
The outcomes actually were, I brought Yarden, I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
But Yarden has, there are a number of things, different follow-ups and different approaches. The most important, which is to bring CCS in. We've got a representative from CCS here today, or from the day center that's here tonight that's going to speak. But there are quite a number of sort of what we refer to as takeaways. Those will be forwarded to the council once those are drafted up. But there was a high level of frustration that is evidenced by the comments that have been made here, and this is exactly why we're having this today.
Okay.
Councilmember Duclos?
Can we do any more street patrol emphasis?
We do all the time. Chief, or actually Deputy Chief, what's our approach with street patrols on 13th Place?
Well, it's a daily process. I can tell you that we have an SOU, our Special Operations Unit, which consists of 5 officers. 95% of their time, 7 days a week, is taken up with homeless issues. So, and then beyond that, that's typically during the daytime hours and early into the evening. And then on top of that, what we do is we have our swing and graveyard officers try to swing through there as often as they can, because as I say, what happens is not only are there just camps, but any overhang, anybody's doorway, people are going to camp there and then maybe get up in the morning and migrate to the day center. So we're constantly going through there. We're also constantly going through other hot spots in the city.
And we added safe city cameras at that location previously.
Yep. And Deputy Chief, I have to say, you guys have done a good job in that realm, because I know that the mayor and I addressed earlier and during the summertime of that same thing happening to another business, and it's been effective. Now, you guys have been doing that, random patrols, and you've been doing significant attention in specific areas, but do the business people feel like that's working? I mean, I understand that's our method, that's what we're doing, but what's the feedback from the businesses with regards to that?
Well, again, I think you'll see some takeaways from the meeting. The meeting this afternoon, I attended that meeting as well, and there was a lot of frustration there from business owners on the issues that they're having on the very things that we're talking about tonight. So it varies from business owner to business owner, but certainly there's a lot of frustration. There's a lot going on that they would like to see more done.
Okay. And I think
We've opened clear lines of communication whenever we get an email, we send people out immediately. But there's trespassers, there's criminal behavior, there's trash, a lot of trash. And so we're going to be addressing those in a systematic manner.
And my final comment, if that's okay. And I really do appreciate us taking another look at this. I know this has been an ongoing issue, really since the day center has come up. And really, it's my opinion that the day center needs to stay. I mean, there's a service that's being offered that's really critically important. But at the same time, I'm very eager to see a plan of new methods, new ideas, and a real commitment in the next phase from Catholic Community Services, and really addressing the businesses' concern. Because it's my hope that later in the year we hear businesses saying, yes, this is addressing our concerns, and we see a significant positive outcome out of our efforts. So that's what I'm hoping to hear down the road. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, I actually, Deanie, then Mark, I have totally forgot to call on Councilmember Kopang. Councilmember Duclos?
All I want to say is that I'm very happy that the business community reached out to the deputy mayor and myself to ask for a meeting, because otherwise I'm afraid we might have lost everybody on on 13th.
They're getting there.
They were getting there, and I'm glad to see that the city is taking action. I'm glad to see that there are increased patrols over there, and we're gonna have to keep it up for a while, because then they'll move someplace else. But we got to keep our business communities safe and strong so that their customers can come to them and they can do the business that they need to do and raise taxes for us in the city. We need to protect them.
We do. There's multi-million dollars of business that's done in that area.
Yeah.
And we also had the Federal Way Chamber of Commerce CEO, Becca Martin, that was there to serve as a facilitator, along with the president of the board, Mark Sims. So he was there. It was a good group, but we clearly need to get CCS and the Day Center at the table, and that's the next piece of this.
Yes, I think we need to put some pressure on CCS. Remember, they were very, when they first came to us, they refused to tell us where they were going to locate the Day Center.
It is important to note, that's another great point, you know, the city did not place this here. It was placed, and we're taking a look. We're going to approach it from a multi-pronged approach. Councilmember Kopang, thank you for your patience.
Not a problem.
Go ahead, please.
I appreciate the presentation. I think I, for one, was receptive to this idea because the Day Center, because I thought it really offered a hand up to a population that really needed a hand extended. And I do think that there are some very effective things that have happened as a result. They're documented in your report, Jeff, and I thank you for that. I don't say the nightmare scenario is too strong, but what we were hoping wouldn't happen has happened, though. And with crime being increased by 71%, and again, that context may be, I mean, what provides that, the context for that is probably beyond just the Day Center. I think it also incorporates the migration of homeless population from Seattle, and that's kind of concurrent with the Day Center being established. So I don't think it can bear the full brunt of the responsibility for that. But but to bear that out, though, would be helpful to have some context on the reporting areas around the Day Center, not just the reporting center. Or
I'm not clear on what you mean by some context beyond what deputy.
I'm directing this to
Okay.
Deputy Chief Neal.
And I'm sorry, that's what we did, is we took the RDs, the reporting districts around, not just the Day Center, but down the street and in a circumference of about a block.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how big is a reporting district?
They vary in size. I'm going to say they're the size of a city block.
Okay.
And some are bigger, some are smaller.
Okay.
The entire city is broken down into reporting districts. That's
How many reporting districts are there, just for context? How many reporting districts are there in the city, approximately?
I'm not sure.
3,000?
No, not that many, maybe a couple of
About
hundred.
150
Yeah.
citywide.
150.
About 150 reporting
Yeah.
districts, so some are substantially larger than their block. They incorporate a residential community with not a lot of activity.
It's like a precinct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough. So the context is that that there's been an increase of 71% in calls or in activity, criminal activity, in the reporting districts around the Day Center.
Yes.
The context is not all that is necessarily directly attributed to the Day Center, but could be a result of a migration of homeless population from Seattle as well. Is that correct?
It could be.
Okay.
And what I can tell you is, when I say it's attributed to homelessness or the transient population, one of the things that we did a couple of years ago is we put in a clearing code in our calls. And what that is, it has a specific letter that if it's a homeless person involved, that goes into our Spillman system. That's how we can extrapolate these numbers and tell you that it's directly attributed to the homeless.
Okay. Well, I tell you, I for one think that we made a commitment to that business community to be very proactive and do what we could to mitigate the influx that we knew was going to come to the Day Center. So I hope that we can develop a very effective and proactive plan to address that, because I think that whether the Day Center relocates at some future point to a better location. That remains to be seen, but I thought that there was some wisdom in that location because of the proximity to the complementary services. Obviously, there's some challenges with this that need to be addressed, and I hope that we can do our part as a city to address those as effectively as possible going forward.
Deputy Mayor Honda,
Thank you.
2 in a row.
Yeah, I'm keeping track here. Thank you for your reports tonight. So it's a pretty significant increase in crime. What type of crimes are there that they are being reported? What's happening when, are you citing these folks, and then do they show up in our courts? What happens after that? And when you find someone sleeping or hanging out in an area that they're not supposed to, and they're clearly a homeless citizen, where do you send them? Because we have 2 shelters, one for women with about 17 beds, and one for men, which about 35 beds or so. We have very limited services to offer our homeless folks. So where do you send them? They're just going to go somewhere else, and then that'd be trespassed from somewhere else. So what do you do?
Well, the first question, I have about 21 different crimes that we pulled these numbers from, all different kinds of crimes. And it might be, harassment is one that went up 300%, let's just say. Certainly trespassing went up about 300%. And so there's various crimes, and I have all that data. This is not, we don't need to get into all those specific numbers, although I'd be happy to do that at some point. I do have them. So the types of crimes, they vary, and some of them are very high, the ones that you would think would be very high. So when it comes to what do we do if someone is camping, certainly if we're aware or we find them or we're called there, the police respond as fast as we can to get there, and then we address that person. So there's a lot of variables now that come into play. Is this a person that we've trespassed before? Do we have a trespass notice? All those independent variables that come into play here. If it's someone, let's say, that has been trespassed numerous times and they're at the same location, they will be arrested because they have to be held accountable for the crime that they're committing. The other crimes, whatever they may be, it may be theft, it could be any number of crimes. If it is criminal, the behavior or what they're involved in, then we hold them accountable, and it just depends on what it is. So I can't tell you all the different crimes, what we did specifically with each one. I can only tell you that we handle it appropriately to hold people accountable. As far as the services, I'll let Jeff talk about that, but for us, obviously, as you know, we have pamphlets with phone numbers, and certainly now at this point, these, one of the issues was, well, you can hand a homeless person a pamphlet. They don't have access to a phone, but actually they do. But they have the shelter they can go to gain these accesses, to at least get in touch with the people that they need to. So really, that's the best service that we have, is to give them the information and also show them or tell them where the day center is, although most in Federal Way know where it is at this point.
Thank you.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right, I think we need to, okay, Councilmember Cephedosa.
Sorry. I had a conversation with Catholic Community Services staff about this, and one thing that she was clear about is some of these crimes, like trespassing and all those, are committed by people who do not engage in the day center. And so I think that's something that needs to be noted, because if they don't want the services, if they're not interested, then whatever other services there are, and I don't know what those issues would be, I think I just want to make sure that we do make that distinction, that there are people who don't want to engage in the services that are offered in our community. So.
Okay, thank you.
Just one last comment. I just think more police patrols in the areas where we know they are and where there have been problems. Just the cars going by may force them to diverse a little bit more, so that they're not just picking on business and property owners the way they are right now.
The last point on this is that this past August, we went through a Herculean effort to clean out the areas south of the day center, south of 336th, and cleaned out acres and acres of what can only be described as waste of dozens, if not hundreds, of shopping carts and TVs and stolen bicycles and stolen debris and makeshift encampments. And it took 20 people to go back there in August, and all of that was cleared out at the cost of tens of thousands of dollars to the property owners. And that was directly across the street from these businesses. So there was a Herculean effort probably by 4 or 5 departments of the city to clean all that out. And I think that's what I wanted to see, what the crime rate was once that had been done. But I just want to let everybody know, this isn't something we just started now. This has been ongoing.
By the way, when I talked to the reporter that night, I told her about what you had done to clean out a homeless encampment in here, and so that it's not that we're hard on them, but we also want to keep our neighborhood safe.
That's right. These are human beings, and we want to help them as well. And so it's complicated. All right, thank you very much. We need to get moving on our meeting. Thank you, everybody. Great conversation. All right, now transitioning to light rail. I am now the co-chair of the Sound Transit Elected Leadership Group for Tacoma Dome Link Extension. Yes, we're talking about light rail all the way down to the Tacoma Dome. Federal Way, downtown Federal Way will be the northern point of that link extension with the Tacoma Dome, and we are gathered last Friday on the 16th. A number of mayors and elected officials and Sound Transit officials gathered at the Fabulous Center, formerly known as the World Trade Center down in the Port of Tacoma. And it's just a discussion that's going to be coming in regard to, from downtown Federal Way, where will light rail, what the path and alignment of light rail will be. So there were quite a number of Pierce County and Tacoma representatives. In fact, the co-chair along with me was Mayor Victoria Woodards, the newly elected mayor of the city of Tacoma. I'll keep you updated on those, on the progress of those meetings. We do have an IRG update from Brian Davis, Director of Community Development. There's been just an update. I promised to keep everybody updated on this. Brian, will you please just give the group a very truncated, brief presentation?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Council. Late last week, staff received a flurry of inquiries from the public about some activity that was taking place on the IRG campus in and around the Technology Center. It turned out to be some land clearing that was authorized late last year that just began to take place this month. By way of review, here's the campus that we're talking about. I think everyone is familiar with this, so I'll skip through it, but just so you know, this is the area that we're talking about right here, where they were given authorization to do some minor underbrush clearing in December. So this, by way of review and introduction for those who have not seen this before, this property is subject to a zoning agreement that the city and Weyerhaeuser entered into in 1994 when the property was annexed into the city. And this is sort of the operative purpose and intent statement of the agreement, which then goes on for another 100 and some pages. It says the property is a unique site both in terms of its development capacity and natural features. Weyerhaeuser desires to develop its property with maximum flexibility, which will ensure optimal development while preserving the unique natural features of the site. So again, a lot of differing opinions even in this purpose and intent statement, and as the council is aware, this is a controversial development proposal because, again, of this purpose and intent statement. As I mentioned, the agreement then goes on for the next several pages, getting into the details of what exactly this means. So the zoning of the property that we're talking about is Corporate Park, which briefly I'll just say for regulation it refers to the 1994 Federal Way Code. That is the, along with the concomitant agreement itself, the 1994 code is what governs the development of the property. So the 94 code says, and what is proposed, they wanted to do some minor clearing of non-significant trees, which under the 94 code was permitted if it was needed to address threats to public health and safety. The city did receive, has received over the course of the last year from the property owners to the north and on this property of some homeless encampments or illegal encampments. Both the DeVita properties and the businesses to the north, as well as the IRG properties south of DeVita, which includes the technology center that I'm referring to, did have some instances where they found some quite a few illegal encampments. So that the request to clear is permitted if no trees more than 5 inches are removed, there's no grading activity, the soil disturbance is minimal, there's no stockpiling of materials, and there's no disturbance to any critical areas such as wetlands or significant trees. So we received some calls and they said, questions about what was going on. So we sent our staff out there to verify that they were meeting the terms and conditions of the authorization that was given in December. The biggest concern was out of all the conditions that I mentioned above, it was this second point was that the trees no more than 5 inches could be removed. We're pretty easily able to, the next four were pretty easily to identify were compliant. But to ensure that we did have some quantifiable measurements that the trees removed were in fact did meet the criteria, we did have staff go out there and measure them. They were asked to look at both the north end and the south end of the technology center. They did find that the trees that were removed were in fact below 5 inches. They did find a couple of instances where there might be some confusion on the part of passersby, such as this example where it would appear that this exceeds 5 inches. The standard is that the diameter of the trunk not exceed 5 inches, 6 inches from the ground. So if you were to look at this mossy area, it would likely appear to be less than, or 5 inches or less, whereas sort of the frayed appearance, this is well beyond 5 inches, but it in fact is the trunk diameter that is what counts. And then also there was a number of these instances where several of the trees grew together in groups, and so you might see a tree here and a tree here that appears as one larger tree, where in fact they are smaller trees that all met below, the 5-inch threshold. So this is a timeline of the events. Again, in December, the city did approve the underbrush clearing. A copy of that we meet regularly with the Save Weyerhaeuser group of their leadership. We meet monthly with them. We did provide a copy to them right away just to keep them informed. The IRG, the property owner, also emailed the Save Weyerhaeuser campus, or at least we were copied on the email message, so we presume that it was sent to Save Weyerhaeuser campus at the beginning of this month, stating that they would commence the clearing, and then we received a complaint on the 14th, which we then did a field verification on the 15th. So happy to answer any questions the council has.
Council, any questions? I knew that of course, we all know, we're all very much aware of the Facebook traffic and also the information, and we receive quite a bit of information from the community about something like this. I wanted to proactively brief. This was a late addition to the council agenda, but I wanted to make sure that that we proactively address the community and let them know. And we'll provide any information. But I knew this was of significant interest, as did all the council members, and we've received some emails as well. So anyway, thank you, Brian. I appreciate it. Okay, and then the last item is from 5:30 to 7 o'clock, or just right before 7 o'clock, we had a budget study session, and we've got a shortfall that we'll be addressing in the 2018 budget before we get to the 2019 and 20 budget. We had a great session. I'm not going to rehash it all. The materials available likely on our city Facebook page, city YouTube page. You can watch the meetings on YouTube, or you can watch it actually on our city website. So I would encourage you to check out the materials and be watching for the conversation moving forward. The plan is, as I've communicated to the council, is to bring up proposed amendments to the 2018 budget at the next city council meeting on March 6th. Okay, now moving on to the most important part of the evening, citizen comment. I've got quite a number of pink sheets, and if anybody wishes to to speak this evening, to go ahead and fill out a pink sheet and forward it over to the city clerk. I'm going to name off some names, and let's make sure we use our time wisely. Everybody knows the rules. Sheila Brush, Sandra Mock, Debbie Connell, Lynn Ormsby, Treese Gradden. And then I'll name some others.
Hi, good evening. My name is Sheila Brush. I actually feel selfish talking about the airplanes after listening to your police report and your homeless crisis. And so I'm kind of going a little off topic, and I'm going to run out of time because I didn't plan this. But there's actually a national sheriff's report that airport communities have higher homelessness and higher crime. And I don't know if your chief, your police have eyes on that, and I suggest that you do. They update it every year, and this is on a national basis. And you have to look at the fact that you are an airport community, and the more that the CTAC is allowed to expand, the more impact on every surrounding community. So anyway, we are the 29th. My name is Sheila Brush. I'm the founder of Quiet Skies Puget Sound. Quiet Skies Puget Sound is the 29th member of a national organization, and there's actually a national caucus, and our Congressman Adam Smith is on that national caucus, and we try and mirror their issues. And I've met personally with Adam Smith a couple of times. I was fortunate enough to recently be at an event with Senator Cantwell, so was Councilmember Johnson, and so was Senator Kaiser. So Senator Kaiser and I were able to talk with Senator Cantwell about this emerging issue, and I'm really already running out of time. So anyway, what I'm here to talk about is the airport and the budget, and Yarden is correct. It did pass. I just got a text also, and it passed. I'm getting lots of texts from lots of people. There's a lot of excitement. So it did text. It's only one budget, so it will only be $500,000. It'll still need a $500,000 match, and so it did pass this evening with 400 and 300, but it will still cap at 500 with the 500,000 match. And yes, the city of SeaTac has pledged 250,000. The city of Des Moines has now decided to back it. I have the utmost respect for your task force. The problem is waiting for a charge report. As I understand it, it'll come at the end of March, and the session is over. So we need to act quickly. We need all surrounding airport cities to back this, to pledge the money. How it breaks down for the city of Federal Way is 51 cents per citizen. And, you know, I think there's a disconnect between the SAMP and what is going on in the SAMP and the impact study. And I'll give you a quick example. In the SAMP, they talk about great things and how they're going to protect us. And one of the terms, oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to be out of time. One of the terms that they use is social justice. And this is really important for your task force to have eyes on. But that is not a legal term, and they use it twice. And the two last pages, they reference social justice. The correct term is environmental justice, which we are covered under Title VI. So why we think that the SAMP is actually going to provide correct EIS, it may not, because the EIS determination is under SEPA determination.
She speaks for a whole task force. Can you please add 2 minutes?
Thank you. So right now, how the Port of Seattle is basing their EIS is on a SEPA determination, which will not come around for another month or so. Again, putting it at the same time that the session is over. So these are two clear situations we're dealing with, and two clear sets of budgets. I know that the city of Des Moines has also allocated $50,000 just for a consultant on the SAMP. So I implore you to back the budget proviso, to send a message that we are going to update these environmental, we are going to update these impact studies, mainly because we need a historic footprint now. We need a snapshot of what we're dealing with now. And if we wait until after the SAMP and after the growth, we've lost our measure of what we're dealing with now. And I've spoke on this before, but this CTAC is looking at growing the size of Dallas-Fort Worth. Dallas-Fort Worth is the size of the island of Manhattan. It rests on over 17,000 acres. It has 7 runways. CTAC is looking at achieving the same 66 million and the same 750,000 metric tons of cargo on 3 runways that they are going to extend, but they can't expand, and on 2,500 acres. It's going to paralyze our corridors because they can't go anywhere else. Okay, I think that's pretty much it.
Sheila, can you tell everybody what SAMP is?
Thank you very much. So what the SAMP is their code word for Sustainable Airport Master Plan. And it's not sustainable anymore. And unfortunately, there's nowhere for these flights to go. They will constantly go over your neighborhoods. I know there's some talk about moving them away from Marine Hills, but in 2009 is when they redesigned the Metroplex airspace. That takes years to do. So it will take years to undo. And I feel like we're kind of in a crisis mode. And I thank you for giving me the extra time.
Thank you for your time, Sheila, and for your work.
Thank
you. She's become a real resource, and we really thank her for her partnership. Sandra Mock, and then Debbie Cannell, Lynn Ormsby, Therese Grad, and then Robert Morrison, Anna Patrick, Mr. Patrick, Scott Angel, and we'll stop there. Thank you. Okay. Some more Mock.
My name is Sandra Mock, and I'm a local realtor. I reside in Des Moines, but I also service the Federal Way area, along with Des Moines, SeaTac, Tukwila, everywhere where planes fly. And I was asked to prepare a study about home values and the impact that our area is receiving. I did a radius from downtown Seattle out to 21 miles, from 21 miles to 23.5 miles. So basically a 2.5 mile radius from downtown Seattle. And I studied a basic 3-bedroom, 1 3/4 to 2 bath home, 1,800 to 2,200 square feet, built from 1975 to the year 2000. I pulled the data, and Des Moines is included, or actually Federal Way, North Federal Way is included in parts of the Des Moines area 120, parts of the Kent area, and what you can see is that our medium home values in the Des Moines and North Federal Way area, that home is currently selling for about $352,450. Kent actually gets a little bit higher at $377,000 because they don't have an basic airport highway growing over their heads. Renton Highlands, they pop up to $500,000 the same distance away. The east side is more than double what we have here. And quite frankly, sometimes we actually have an easier drive into the city. And then you go further north, and the southeast part of Snohomish County, which is the same distance away, you're looking at $510,000. And Juanita Woodinville, they've got a medium of $580,000. So you look at our median home values back here at the $352,000, and you realize, gosh, I wonder why it's so different. There's no other explanation except for the airport and the air traffic. And I've been watching this and studying it for years now. And the gap is getting wider and wider and wider the more air traffic we have over our heads. Thank you.
Thank you. Debbie Cannell, and then Lynn Ormsby.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, it's Debbie Connell, but that's okay. It's been mispronounced all my life. Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council members, I'm here to speak in support of the Save Weyerhaeuser Campus Group. I've been coming to the council meetings now for 18 months, ever since Weyerhaeuser left the Federal Way area for Seattle. I haven't felt the urge or the drive to really get up and speak because so many other people speak better than I would. I spent 25 years of my 37 years at Weyerhaeuser in that technology center building. Some days it was hard to go in, some days the job was harder than other days. But there was never a day that I was proud of the location and proud of the landscaping and everything else involved in that building. I worked at corporate headquarters when it was being built, and it was made to blend in with the landscaping and everything else, to be a part of the forest. You could never see it from the streets. You could never see it from the freeway. People doubted that I actually worked anywhere. What has happened to that landscape now is nothing short of environmental rape. I know they're calling it clearing of underbrush, and I know what it has to do with the homeless situation in Federal Way, which I know is hard. In the 25 years I was there, I never saw a sign of a homeless person anywhere near that property. I question whether there were any now. I just want to urge the council, I don't know how in the world this ever got approved in the first place, to go in and do what they have done. There's been extensive damage done to much larger trees, almost with the intent to do damage. That's what it looks like to me from the road. I would like to urge you not to let this happen, not to let this continue to happen to this property. It's a jewel in this part of the world. I am at a loss as to how it has gotten this way. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Lynn Ormsby.
I'm Lynn Ormsby, and I'm a member of the Federal Way Day Center Coalition. I've been a resident of Federal Way since 1974, and I'm a retired Federal Way teacher who has had homeless families come through my classroom. You have heard the statistics tonight of the Day Center, but I would like to highlight for you the enthusiasm and the ownership I've seen in our citizens in Federal Way. We have networked for over 4 years, so we are now working with Advancing Leadership, Federal Way Community Connections, and we even have Federal Way students volunteering in our center. Businesses are partnering with us on our fundraisers, and they're benefiting. Our Federal Way citizens are also benefiting the Day Center. I have been heartened and amazed to see the donations, financial donations that we've received to keep our operating costs. And I also, almost every week, we receive items donated to help keep the center functioning, such as socks, towels, toilet items, shampoo, things that are much needed. We even see kids come in with their moms to donate hats and gloves. So what's important to know is the center has become an integral part of our city. I hear so many citizens say how proud they are that they're helping to make a difference in people's lives with positive results. Thank you.
Therese Gradden.
Good evening, Council and members of the community. I have been a member of Federal Way for over 40 years and have been involved in voting forever and part of the community. I also am part of the group of people that inquired of what can we do to make Federal Way a better place, and we came up with the idea of helping the homeless. There were a lot of things already in place, and so the missing link that we could help is with the Day Center. And I'd just like to tell you 2 really short stories and then tell you about how it also impacted me as an educator in the Federal Way schools for 28 years, and I'm still subbing. One day, shortly after we opened, a man, it was his turn to take a shower, and he went in, and he came out and he said, pulled his hair back and said, wow, I can't tell you the last time I had a shower was. I feel like a new man. And the Day Center provided a place for him to do that. Also, this Christmas, there was a gentleman who was ready to receive treatment. He got treatment this year and got some things in order, and he was showering to go home to see his family for the first time in 5 years from the help that he got at the Day Center. As an educator, I have my job the last few years that I worked were with the children that were significantly behind educationally 2 years or more. Most of the times, these children, through no fault of their own, had missed much schooling because their parents were homeless. We do have something called McKinney-Venti happening, so once a child starts in Federal Way, it's a Washington state law that they be brought back to that home school for the rest of that school year. They could be living 45 minutes away, so a taxi or somebody brings them. But if your families can become stable, your children have a much better chance of succeeding in their future. And also I just want to say, yes, I support the day center, but I also am a community member, and I want to work collaboratively with the business people in our area. We don't do these things by ourselves. And collaboratively, we should be able to move forward with the issues we have. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Robert Morrison. Then Anna Patrick and Mr. Patrick, and then Scott Angel and Tashana Nash.
Hello, Jim Farrell and the rest of the Congress. I am Robert Morrison, and I'm concerned about the, I like to help Federal Way out and us be safe, especially on the corner of 312th and 28th Avenue South, is a dangerous corner. And I forgot to put down, but there's also a crosswalk right there. And if anybody's crossing at night and a car doesn't see them, they'll get run over. And there's plenty of other lights along the way that are out that has never been changed. And so there's a section of road from the corner on down that is awfully pitch black at night. And the cars some cars just go zooming right through there. And they don't see the pedestrians. So I thought I would bring it up that this corner really needs to be taken a look at desperately before somebody does get killed. Okay?
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
I've got your note, your handwritten notes, and the map. And Desiree Winkler, who's our Deputy Public Works Director, I'll make sure she gets this, and we'll take a look at the lights and take a look at the conditions at that area.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, Anna Patrick.
Good evening, Mayor Farrell, Deputy Mayor, and council members. At the last meeting, I spoke about the homeless shelter that we've hosted in our neighborhood for the past 9 years. I'm going to continue to talk about the shelter that we host in our neighborhood. When I use the word host, I am referring to the issues that are brought to our neighborhood by those who are visiting, staying in shelters and encampments in the surrounding neighborhood. There are 3 churches on one block that regularly serve the homeless near 312th and 6th Avenue. St. Luke's helps 4 to 6 people one morning per week. New Hope provides temporary shelter to 3 to 4 families per night and day services to others on Tuesday and Wednesday. The Church of the Good Shepherd serves 12 to 15 women overnight and serve about 45 to 50 people breakfast on Tuesday and Friday. I watched a video recently pertaining to a new response to addiction and mental illness in Federal Way. In the video, Josh Hagelin from the Special Ops Unit, who has worked directly with the homeless in our community over the past 9 years, stated that most of the homeless in our community exhibit drug and alcohol abuse and/or mental illness. Within homeless encampments, there is extortion, prostitution, assault, and theft. He stated that it is common for criminals to use homeless to commit crimes. The criminal element is drawn to the homeless. These homeless are drawn to the areas that provide resources. Pastor Miller of New Hope acknowledged an uptick in problems in the neighborhood, which he ascribed to when Seattle shut down the jungle. People seeking services at his shelter were more aggressive and less willing to follow rules. We've seen it in our neighborhood. You've got the video. New Hope asks potential guests about criminal convictions. They can conduct a Washington State background check on site, but do so only at their discretion. Because there are minors in the facility, the policy is to deny admittance to any adult with a conviction for a sex offense, kidnapping offense, or any crime against a child. If denied, they are escorted out of the facility and told to go north to 312th. I don't know what St. Luke's and Church of Good Shepherd do regarding background checks. The reason I was interested in the policies of New Hope was because of some activity in my neighborhood related to the shelter. I also was told by Pastor Miller that he takes in those who are not allowed in shelters elsewhere. I am not convinced that a shuttle service can't work with regards to escorting people away from proximity to schools if someone is found to be a registered sex offender who is not allowed to be in proximity to children, as well as someone who has a kidnapping offense or crime against a child. I also think that New Hope Church and St. Luke's Church, as well as Church of Good Shepherd, should be required to perform background screening on all who receive services and volunteer there. This would be for the safety of all the children at Mirror Lake Elementary and St. Luke's Church, as well as the family shelter. I've heard a lot about what cannot be done. I want to hear what can be done. I've offered suggestions. I'm eager to see solutions. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Mr. Patrick, and then Scott Angel.
Good evening, Mayor Farrell, Deputy Mayor, Council members. My name is Mr. Patrick. I am the Policy Advisor for Springwood Preservation Society. I would like to thank Mayor Farrell, Yarden, and the members of the Federal Way Police Department for taking time to meet with Pastor Rick from New Hope Church. I trust your meeting was productive. I'm sure you're aware of the altercation that occurred during your meeting. For those who are not present, let me explain what took place. A parent was picking up a child behind Mirror Lake Elementary School. A pedestrian lunged out in front of the vehicle, and the parent slammed on the brakes and sounded the horn. The pedestrian began to unleash a tirade of profanities at the driver and child. The driver exited the vehicle, and at that point, the pedestrian produced a crowbar in a threatening manner. The driver stood his ground, and the pedestrian cut through the backside of St. Luke's Church, or St. Luke's Preschool. Children were outside playing at St. Luke's while this was taking place. The children had to be evacuated into St. Luke's Church during this time. The pedestrian headed west on 312th towards 711. Police were informed and made contact with the pedestrian and was identified as a known transient. This was all taking place outside while the meeting was going on at New Hope Church. This is the reality of our situation in Federal Way. This is a sad situation for everyone involved, most of all the children who are just trying to be kids. We support Pastor Rick and New Hope's church efforts to help women and children. However, we do not feel that New Hope Church is willing to be an inclusive participant in our community. When a community member has a valid concern, Pastor Rick has them trespass from his property. The city of Federal Way has offered $15,000 for 10 weeks of service for the homeless. Pastor Rick has declined that money to help homeless women and children of Federal Way. Why? He raised his hand to volunteer to take people, and then he refuses the money. This is not inclusive behavior. This is exclusionary behavior by Pastor Rick to the community and the city. If New Hope Church is successful, our community will be successful. If New Hope Church fails, we're not going to do so good. I was pushed for solutions during a curbside conversation with a 30th District Democrat represent. I said, I don't have all the answers, but maybe some cities like Redmond, Bellevue, and Kirkland can step up and support this county-wide homeless issue. The response was, those are rich cities. What does that mean? At this point, the 30th District Democrat stepped away. I've been made aware of something called a document recovery fee. I would like to know more about it, how it may benefit the city of Federal Way. And I'd also like to thank Heidi Sanders from the Mirror and Cairo News for their articles on our concerns. I'd also like to thank Federal Way Police Department and Federal Way Public Schools for increasing patrols in our neighborhood. I would like to take time to recognize Greg Vickers, a member of our society who just passed away recently. Greg was a role model to me. He knew no bounds of service. He had no limits to who he would help or how much he would help. His involvement in multiple charities organizations and was instrumental in getting the Day Center up and running. Greg and I wouldn't see eye to eye on some things sometimes. However, I was always impressed with his selflessness and how he was able to put others before himself. Greg Vickers will be missed in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick. Greg Vickers just passed away. He was a tremendous member of our community, so thank you for honoring him. Scott Angel?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Scott Angel. First of all, I'd just
reiterate mostly, I was going to say the same thing Mrs. Patrick, I believe it was, said, that I think the important thing we need here, I'm hearing the same thing from everybody in the community, and that we need a standard. We need to understand what safety and security we have. There's a need for the facilities and for the things that we provide to the people that need them. But at the same time, we need to create a standard that is enforced, that we can say, if you're going to be in our community, you're going to live by our standard. And all that means is that the background checks, the keeping our children safe, keeping our community safe. If people need help, let's help them. But the people that need help are willing to accept it, and they're willing to do what it takes to get to that next level on the ladder, to step up to the next rung. Long term, I'm sorry, it's not a solution for homelessness. Long term is not a solution. I've seen this in my own family. I've seen it destroy my own family because I enabled somebody and continued to allow them to go down a road that was not positive because I didn't want to hurt their feelings and I didn't want to be firm with them. So long term is not a solution to anything. We need valid facilities that hold people to a standard, that get them pointed in the right direction within a certain amount of time. I'd actually like to bring up Officer Martin. I don't know if it's still possible to make donations, if you can put that information out later, and commend Anna, the young lady, the Explorer that was here. It's nice to see the youth of our community. I don't know if that's something that we can do something similar to that, to take some of these people that need help, that need guidance, that need to get put on a positive path, that could point them in the right direction to a career training schools, technical schools, things that will do for them. And then also just touch on the crime, that I've seen it. And in regards to what our deputy chief said, and I want to thank our law enforcement again, that I have personal reason to believe, because I see so much crime in this neighborhood, and it wasn't here when I moved here. I've seen at Federal Way, the Fred Meyer where I shop, in the parking lot, in the store where they now have armed security, they have people in civilian clothing. I've talked to them and asked, told them when I've seen people stealing, same thing at Lowe's. They don't even chase them anymore because it's not worth putting their employees' lives in danger to chase somebody that's shoplifting. And so my concern is that, not that I see the statistics and I believe it, and I don't think that it's the crime reports are going down. I think people just feel like, what's the point in calling? Nothing's going to change, nothing's going to make a difference. So I'd like to see our money, and I don't mind paying more taxes if that money's going to go to our law enforcement and to getting results. So.
Thank you, Scott. Hey, Scott, can you touch base with Deputy Chief Neal in the back of the room? He'll get you the information about who to reach out to. I think Lieutenant Ray Bunk was sort of managing things for Frank Martin's family, and he'll get you that contact information, okay? All right. Thank you for coming tonight. Let's give him a round. Good job. Tashana Nash.
Good evening. My name is Tashana Nash. My husband Darren and I are 15-year residents of Federal Way, where we are enjoying raising our 3 daughters. On behalf of Save Weyerhaeuser Campus, I would like to invite you all to our 2nd annual Earth Day Walk. Please join us on Earth Day, Sunday, April 22nd, to show your support for this one-of-a-kind property. Almost 430 acres of urban forest, meadows, trails, wetlands, wildlife, North Lake, the world-famous rhododendron garden, and the Bonsai Museum. And perfectly positioned within it all, an award-winning headquarters building with space for approximately 1,000 employees. The walk will begin at 2 p.m. in the afternoon of April 22nd, and the route will be the same as last year. We'll walk through the meadow, north on Weyerhaeuser Way, to the public boat launch and back. Check-in will be at the corner of South 336th Street and 20th Avenue South, and parking is available at the Christian Faith Center. Participation is by donation, and the Rhododendron Garden is offering free admission that day to all walk participants. The flowers will be in bloom. The Bonsai Museum, located next door, will also be open, and admission there is always by donation only. Please save the date and walk with us at 2 p.m. on Earth Day, Sunday, April 22nd, as our community comes together in unity and hope for preserving what is wonderful about Federal Way, Washington State, the Pacific Northwest, and planet Earth. Thank you.
Thank you. Cindy Flanagan for 5 minutes, and she lists out 5 individuals who are present. And after Cindy, we've got Dana Holloway, Sue Peterson, and actually, I think Sue Yarden, okay. I don't know if we can catch her in the parking lot, but anyway, Lori Sechrist and Suzanne Vargo. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Cindy Flanagan from the Rainier Audubon, and I'd like to begin tonight by thanking the Land Use and Transportation Committee for approving the motion to bring before Council the request to apply for another $1 million of King County Conservation Future Funds for open space acquisition on the Weyerhaeuser campus for the fiscal year of 2019. The stakeholder group consists of Forterra, Save Weyerhaeuser Campus, the Pacific Bonsai Museum, and the world-renowned rhododendron species botanical garden will be raising the required $1 million matching funds. We ask for council to vote in favor of approving this consent agenda item, and we thank you in advance for your continued support. Over the past week, with an approved permit, IRG has begun removing the undergrowth in its forested areas around the technology center. The intent to make the area safer. I have asked some of the people working at the technology center if they feel safer now that IRG has cleared the undergrowth. Their response, like the voice of Debbie Connell, who spoke so heartfeltedly earlier, is a quick no. And I've never felt unsafe in all the years that I've worked here. One individual replied that the clearing itself felt like an assault, as his nearby nature that soothes him, helping him to decompress from his work, is gone. I think the majority of us have a lump in the gut feel as we go by the now clearly visible technology center. We've lost the escape being wrapped in the forest as we travel along the Weyerhaeuser Way. It has a foreboding feel, and development looms. For me, what stands out is the sense of urgency we have to save this open space of the campus. I wonder how we, the people, the businesses, the city, the county, and the state can work together to preserve and protect this regional, economic, and natural gem now. In the next 20 years, we will see unprecedented population growth in King County, over 1 million people. That's 50 new residents a day for the next 20 years, and the bulk of that growth will be in South King County. We need to plan our infrastructure wisely. Our environmental infrastructure, providing open space and trails, is as equally important to our infrastructure as is the sewage, water treatment, clean energy, and transit. We need the trails, open space, and the nearby nature of the historic Weyerhaeuser campus, a place that is time-tested. There is a concept called the seventh generation stewardship that originated with the Iroquois. It's called the Great Law of the Iroquois, which holds appropriate to think 7 generations ahead and decide whether the decisions made today would benefit the children 7 generations in the future. In every deliberation, we must consider the impact on the 7th generation, even if it requires having skin as thick as the bark of a pine. While we move forward deliberating the Save Weyerhaeuser campus, I'd like to ask the council to put its thick pine skin on and take progressive actions. Tonight, obviously, the approval for the city to apply for the $1 million for the CFT funds, to continue to explore and apply for other funding options, to consider reevaluating the historic preservation nomination process. The DAHP deemed the historic Weyerhaeuser campus eligible for listing on the National Register of Historic Places almost 6 months ago, yet the owner has made no attempt to list our region's Guggenheim. During the city's upcoming budget discussions, let's figure out how we can find more funding in the budget to acquire open space on the historic Weyerhaeuser campus. I will add I was encouraged by Deputy Mayor Honda and other council members discussing this at the LUTC meeting. And finally, let's garner greater support from King County and state economic development to find better business alternatives than warehousing and distribution for the campus. Conservation of the campus property is a regional investment, and being aggressive with how much of it we save will produce a great return on our investment and on our seventh generations. Not only will we preserve the longest undeveloped lakeshore in South King County and protect our watershed and the wildlife that rely on it, we will also provide an accessible gateway to nature experiences, walkable trails, and refreshment from the urban jungle for the increasing number of people living in Federal Way and surrounding areas, high-density urban cores, now and for generations to come. Let's be bold. Let's be mindful. Let's save this place for always. Thank you.
Sue Peterson. Thanks for waiting, Sue.
Thank you. I was just about to slip out.
I know, we saw you. That's why I put your sheet first.
Reeled me in.
Thanks, Dana.
Mr. Mayor, City Council meetings, and Deputy Mayor. Next to my heart is Weyerhaeuser. I am also extremely involved with the airplane noise, as all of you know. But tonight I'm talking a little bit about Weyerhaeuser. In driving past recently, I was absolutely appalled. The pictures I have seen on the internet, not necessarily the ones that I believe Mr. Davis showed, are absolutely appalling. I don't know who they hired to do that, but I've got a 15-year-old grandson that could have done a lot better job. They got ripped off. But I want to remind you that in October of 2016, you all received a letter from George Weyerhaeuser Sr. In it, and I'm quoting, he said, "In developing the property for Weyerhaeuser World Headquarters in the late 1960s, I never imagined it would be used for industrial development or large warehouses. Instead, my vision was to create a campus that took advantage of the site's natural merits, with forests and meadows to shelter wildlife, provide scenic vistas, and include walking trails so the natural environment could be enjoyed by employees as well as community members. Aside from the headquarters building, structures were to be screened with timber, as was done at the Technology Center. Any future buildings were envisioned to be much smaller and also screened by trees." I don't know how you have reached this point where you are faced with changing the appearance of the campus forever, but I urge you to consider the following, and this is from George's mouth. When I was CEO of Weyerhaeuser, one of our company policies spoke to recreation versus economics on our lands. Sometimes the recreational value exceeds the value of any other land use, and sites with historic interest should be preserved for the public to enjoy. And as I once told an interviewer, it's important to consider that major developments will alter things permanently, as our last speaker said. When the change involves a unique asset, you must carefully weigh whether economic progress is worth what will be lost. So I am asking you to work with the new owners to preserve the low-density, open-space character of this campus and to protect its unique features for the community, as was agreed upon when Weyerhaeuser joined the city in 1994. I would hope to goodness that George Sr. never has to drive down South Weyerhaeuser Way. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Dana Holloway, and then Lori Sechrist.
Well, let's see if I can get through without crying. I'm a 40-year resident and I didn't even know the tech center existed. I had to use GPS to go find it because it was so well hidden, I really never knew it was there. So what George Weyerhaeuser did, he did very well. I'm going to talk about the brush clearing around the tech center. I drove by it today because I saw the pictures on the internet also, and I wanted to see for it myself. See how the IRG was executing the removal of the underbrush and meeting the conditions of the approval as authorized in the letter by Brian Davis. I was shocked at the destruction that the brush hog machinery did to the forested area. This minor clearing, as Brian Davis calls it, looked like a tornado had gone through that area. IRG used the brush hog to break the limbs of conifers and deciduous trees that were not to be removed due to their size. This tactic split and shred the limbs and even damaged many of the trunks, leaving those trees susceptible to disease and possibly dying. I don't think that meets the conditions of the approval. I would like to know if IRG had their forester that is called out in the concomitant agreement on site during the clearing process. I doubt it, because I don't even think they have a forester. I think IRG should be made to take immediate corrective action to properly and correctly remove the damaged limbs and patch the damaged trunks to protect, in order to protect the future further damage to the trees. Again, these are the trees that were not to be removed due to their size. So they just damaged them so they would die on their own. I think the city should also revise the authorization letter to clearly state the method to be used to trim up the limbs on the trees that are not to be removed, per the conditions of approval. In other words, don't use the hog brush. I mean, it really does look like someone set off a bomb. IRG is one step closer to destroying this iconic property and making it an industrial zone, just like Fife and Sumner. I'm beyond disappointed in IRG and the city for allowing it to happen.
Thank you, Dan. Laurie Seacrest.
Okay. So I'm going to repeat a lot of what's already been said. So good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, City Council, City staff, friends, and neighbors. Tonight I have two things I would like to discuss. First, in support of the consent agenda, item G, the council authorization to apply for the 2019 King County Conservation Funds. I'd like to summarize the letter that was dated January 31st to the Mayor Farrell, signed by Michelle Connor, Executive Vice President for Terra, Steve Hoopman, Executive Director of the Rhododendron Species Botanical Garden, Kathy McCabe, the Executive Director for the Pacific Bonsai Museum, and myself, Laurie Seacrest, the President of the Save Weyerhaeuser Campus. These four equally important organizations have all committed to assisting the city of Federal Way in their efforts to pursue open space conservation strategies for the historic Weyerhaeuser campus. We have requested that the city apply for the 2019 King County Conservation's Futures Grant and appreciate your willingness to do so. We understand that the grant requires the 50% match from the applying community and that the city does not have the funds available to meet this match at this time. But we are committed to working with the city and the broader community to raise the funds necessary to meet this 50% requirement, with Forterra's working diligently on state grants and other private funding efforts. Should the match not be met, we do understand that the city would need to return or rescind the award. So with this being said, I urge your approval of this item. Preserving open space for the health of our community and the environment is the right thing to do and is no risk to the city. I'd also want to share with you that this morning a group of us went to the King County Transportation Economy and Environmental Committee meeting in Seattle to support the King County Land Conservation Initiative. This initiative is a proactive effort to conserve and protect 65,000 acres of high conservation lands throughout King County. I spoke about the iconic Weyerhaeuser property as being a destination for Federal Way and the Save Weyerhaeuser Campus organization's mission to promote the conservation of the open spaces, forests, trails of this regional gem, which has been free to the public use for nearly 50 years. I remind you again that people of all ages and walks of life from all over the region come to the campus to walk their dogs, fly their kites, meander the 7 miles of trails, and teach their children the wonders and the importance of the natural habitats. The 300 acres of the forest and meadows, the longest undeveloped shoreline in South King County, the healthy lake that is the headwaters of the East Highlands are all irreplaceable urban open space that must be protected. So to my second topic. I am saddened and disappointed with both the city's approval of the underbrush application to IRG and their belief that the contractor did not violate the conditions of the work that was performed. When we were told that the clearing of nuisance underbrush would be done, I never imagined the end results, what it would look like as it does today. The heavy equipment used tore through the precious landscape and left in its wake something that looks more like a tornado went through. If you haven't been over there, you have to go see it. I was told that more applications for the same type of work for other areas across the campus would follow, and I asked that the city take into consideration the unique character of this campus and think twice before permitting any further underbrush clearing, or at the minimum require a more stricter approach in the method that was used. We have been saying this for over 18 months. Betty gets it, right? The time is now. We must protect this urban oasis. Just as I did this morning, I would like to end with the George Weyerhaeuser quote, "When the change is for all time and involves a unique physical asset, I think we have to weigh it very, very carefully to see what price we are going to have to pay for economic progress." Thank you. Thanks for that.
Suzanne Vargo. And I've got something to say when we get it done. Ms. Vargo?
Members of the council and mayor. The campus has been cleared, as we all know, and even though a permit was issued, I'm questioning the process in which the clearing was administered. I do not believe it was done in accordance to the forester, Brian Giles. Mr. Giles has written on the evaluation of the trees in the Green Line area as well as one on new edge trees. The clearing has been done using only a hog cutter, but permit states that hand cutting may be needed to protect surrounding trees. Non-significant trees are mangled and surrounding trees are primed for failure. Hard to tell what is a clump of trees based on the picture that Mr. Davis showed us. I am curious why healthy trees that line the inner roads and parking lot of the tech center had to have their limbs shredded 30 feet up high. These were well-maintained trees, and I cannot imagine that the homeless are building a camp right where the security passes by numerous times a day. Now, I can understand why removing the said trees to better view the alleged homeless, but what purpose is served by removing the native shrubs and habitat? Last time I checked, the homeless were well over 3 feet tall. I know I am not able to camp underneath the fern. If this process is not implemented, trees will suffer needlessly and possibly die. This is critical for the survival because damage prevention is the single most effective treatment for the trees on the construction site. Once these trees are damaged, treatment options are limited. The tree protection measures are introduced into all relevant documents such as site plans, permit applications, conditions of approval and bid accounts. Thoughtful measures to be taken are to provide habitat trees, nursing logs, vertical structures to provide important wildlife habitat. There are none of those left on the campus in this area. Opportunity exists here to remove the damaged the damaged portions of these trees and leave snags standing for wildlife. Talking about the vertical nursing trees, couple snags are great. What was left on the campus is barbaric. The new edge trees say that it could take up to 10 years for a tree to adapt to its new surroundings, having lost the support of surrounding trees. They do depend on each other, especially during our large storms that descend on our area. I would like to ask that the city and IRG comply with Mr. Giles and the recommendations that he has put forth, as well as treat these lands with more thoughtfulness going forward. I have walked the land for 18 years. I walk at 8:30 at night. I have never felt unsafe on the campus. I've never seen a homeless camp. I talk to people walking out of the tech center. They don't know about any homeless. They haven't seen anything, don't know why this is all happening. And I would like to say that this clearing is the ultimate slap in the face to the hardworking and skilled members of the Weyerhaeuser business, not to mention each and every one of us who now have to watch this. So please do everything in your power to make sure that development is done thoughtfully. Use the High LeBeau's plan. Use the recommendations set forth by a forester. I'd be very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. You know, I've been watching this play out very carefully, and I talked to our community development director. Brian, you and I need to go personally inspect this. I will personally inspect this. As you know, I have to leave early tomorrow for the funeral, but when I get back on Thursday, you and I are going to go out there and take a look at it. I will personally inspect it, and then we'll take a look at it. I want to see show me all the guidelines and all of that and the standards. All right, we'll take care of it, because I think that, you know, the real issue is about what happens from this point forward, and that's why we started with that addition with the pictures of the site, and thank you for that. We need to take a closer look at this. All right, Paul Brogan. Is Paul still here? Paul he put homeless in Federal Way, and so I thought I saw him leave just a few moments ago, but Paul waited for quite some time. Betty Taylor, and then Mike Roberts. What's that? Oh, yeah. And that's the last, after Mr. Roberts, that's the last one I have.
Good evening. My name is Betty Taylor, and right now I'm going to be a representative of Integrity Life Church. And I'm going to read a letter from Pastor Joe Bowman, and it reads like this. Dear community partners and friends, Integrity Life Church has reached a milestone in ministry. We have successfully completed our lease in our current location and have now been presented an opportunity to deepen our community impact with a permanent church home at 37603 28th Avenue South, Federal Way, Washington. 98003. I am sure you're aware of the important role that Integrity Life Church plays in helping people in Federal Way and beyond through our annual backpack giveaway and several other initiatives and causes. This important work is supported largely by the care of our generous congregants who contribute significantly month in and month out. In order to continue making a difference in the lives of individuals affected by the work of advancing all people, it is vital for this year's capital campaign to be a success. Can we count on you to make a donation to this important cause? By making a tax-deductible donation to our generational campaign, you will be directly contributing to generations of people reached by a message of love, hope, and faith. Isaiah 61, 1-3 is a platform from which we advance our cause with clarity. Furthermore, you will be recognized for your generosity as a generation campaign supporter in the Integrity Life Church website donor appreciation page, and your name will be displayed on our wall of thanks at our new location. Integrity Life Church is dependent upon your assistance and generosity. Please visit integrity.forlife.org to pledge your support or fill out and return the attached portion below. Anyway, the church, we got a chance to visit the location. It's on 28th Avenue by Weyerhaeuser, by World Vision, and it is the Ukrainian church. They will be moving to the Steel Lake Presbyterian Church, and so we'll be moving there. So I asked Pastor Bowman if it will be okay if I read a letter. He said it'd be okay. So he's not here, he can't be here, but I'm here to represent. And then I have something else to say also. And remembering Greg Vickers, I thought about him, and I know that there's going to be a vigil, prayer vigil, Thursday, February 22nd, 7:30 p.m., memorial mass funeral service, reception following Friday, February 23rd, 11 o'clock a.m. Both will be held at St. Vincent de Paul's Catholic Church, 30525 8th Avenue South. And I just appreciate it.
Thank you, Betty. All right. Mr. Mike Roberts.
Hello, City Council, residents of Federal Way. I wasn't going to speak today just because I wanted to hear how it was going to play out, and I guess I need to bring a bag of popcorn because this is just hilarious. The lack of common sense in this city is ridiculous. You guys are sitting here applauding a 90% failure rate with your day spa. 90%, over 90%. I'm not a mathematician, I'm not the smartest person in the world, but your day spa is a failure, and you guys want to continue it? You want to keep inviting these homeless? You said there were over 1,100 people that have used that facility. How many people have actually gone on to get a house and moved on with their lives and become a productive part of society? Under 100 in the past year out of 1,100? And you guys are applauding this? And you think it's a good idea in our city? If I only showed up to work 10% of the time, I wouldn't have a job. If I only paid 10% of my taxes, I'd go to jail. I'd lose everything. This is ridiculous and absurd that you guys think that this is okay for our city. That you're going to waste our tax dollars on supporting something that's a 90% failure rate. Failure. All of you. Failure. You are letting us down. Letting us down, very much so. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who'd like to come speak to the group? Sir, come on, Pastor.
Good evening, council members and mayor. My name is Bill Hallerman. I'm the director of Catholic Community Services of King County. I wanted to just provide a little bit of context and say a couple things in response to the issue about the day center. And some of that is context about what's going on in all of our communities that are struggling with homelessness, just like Federal Way is. You know, the most important study in the past 4 years about homelessness told us this, that for every $100 of rent increase there is in a community, there's an increase between 15 and 39% in homelessness in that community. That was done over hundreds of cities and rural areas in this country to try to show how much rent increases affects the number of folks that are homeless. How many hundreds of dollars of increase has there been in our community in the last 4 or 5 years? There's been very many of them. And I think that this community is struggling like many communities, and many suburban communities are struggling to get a handle on it. Since the day center opened here in November, 3 other cities that we work in, Catholic Community Services, has opened either day centers or shelters in Auburn, in Kent, in Kirkland, as all of us together try to get a handle on how to respond to the growing numbers of our folks who've been made homeless by the prices of housing in our community. So I want and I want you to know that struggle that we have in Federal Way has begun way before the day center. 6 months before the day center started, I walked all of those wooded areas that are around where the day center is, found camps in all of those areas. That was 2 years ago. Already the increase had started to hit Federal Way. So it's not something that's hard to understand as housing prices have gone and more people have had it. That's the struggle that we face. So I think there's, even saying that, I think this community has tried to respond to that, I think, in a really a good way. To echo what the Deputy Chief said, it is complicated, it is hard, it takes a multidisciplinary response. I think there's two things on the horizon that can help with that. One is a couple of weeks ago, I know the mayor and the church community and the nonprofit community gathered a group of providers and church members and the city to get together and to try to take a more comprehensive look at how we deal with homelessness in Federal Way. I think that bodes some promise to do that. I also want to recognize the business folks that you met with today, and that CCS looks forward to meeting with all those folks over the next weeks to see what we could do together also to help the impact on the community that this crisis has given us. I leave you with just one final thought. We have to resist the temptation to blame the day centers and shelters for causing homelessness, just like we don't blame food banks for causing hunger, or Health Point for causing illness, or Valley Cities for causing mental illness. It's a struggle. It is hard. It's a difficulty in our community, but we only get there if we pull that group of folks together, I think, and do what we can. So we're committed to doing that and hopeful to do it.
Bill, thank you very much for your comments, and thank you. Bill. Actually, Bill, could you, what we'll need to do is I need you to fill out a pink sheet, and Bill and Lynn, can you please reach out to my office tomorrow? We need to set up a meeting with CCS and make sure that that's a next step that we need to do, because I think that we need to address this in a comprehensive manner. Sir, if you'd like to, not from there, but from the podium, please.
I'll try to be brief. My name is Joseph Connor, and we've lived in Federal Way since 1961. At one point, Sharon and I owned Campus Cafe, which is just a half a block up the hill from the day center. And I'm kind of speaking for Paul, who didn't get to speak here tonight. I had coffee with him today at the day center, and I talked to him, very intelligent guy. Anyway, what I'm here to say is that when we owned Campus Cafe, there were homeless people that came in. We had a large population of police that were our regular customers there at Campus Cafe. And so when one of these guys would come to ask for a sandwich or something, Sharon would, of course, make him a sandwich, and one of the police would put him on a bus to Seattle, because it wasn't Federal Way's problem, it was Seattle's problem. Right? Wrong. I mean, it wasn't Seattle's problem, even then, and it certainly isn't today. So what I would urge everybody who is addressing this very complex problem to think about is that we all have to live somewhere. Your Honor, the mayor, the police chief, Therese Gradden, all the rest of these people, we all have to live somewhere, and so do the homeless people. I understand that there's criminal activity, and I understand that all that's a problem, but to talk about clearing an area does not solve things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. All right, thank you. That was a great public comment section. We value all that input. Now we need to move on to the consent agenda portion of our calendar. Item 5, I'll read the items. These items have gone through committee and can be passed all in one motion, or after I read them, if a council member wants to pull an item for separate consideration, I'll seek that motion. Item 5A, minutes for the February 6, 2018 special and regular meetings. Item B, the summary of the minutes for the January 3, 2018 legislative breakfast, February 3rd, 2018 annual council retreat. Item C, West Helbus Creek South 373rd Street gravel removal project, 85% design status report and authorization to bid. Item D, Lakota Park Stormwater Facility Repair Project, 85% design status report and authorization to bid. Item E, Military Road South at South 298th Street, compact roundabout project, 85% design status report. Item F, resolution setting public hearing date for the street vacation of a portion of Southwest 300th Street for March 20th, 2018. Item G, authorization to apply for fiscal year 2019 King County Conservation Funds, Futures Funds. Item H, Tony Lind paving work complete. Item I, interlocal agreement between the City of Federal Way and South King Fire and Rescue to occupy a portion of City Hall. Item J, Fifth Amendment for tree services. Item K, the Humane Society for Tacoma and Pierce County agreement for shelter and related services. Item L, agreement between the Washington State Traffic Commission, WTSC, and the Federal Way PD Police Department to provide grant funding for traffic enforcement. Item M, goods and services agreement for installation and electrical repair of police vehicle emergency equipment. And N, goods and services agreement for police uniforms, alteration, and repairs. Council, out of all those items, is there a particular item that the council would wish to pull for separate consideration? Hearing none, Deputy Mayor Honda, do you have a motion?
Yes, I do. I move approval of items A through N on the consent agenda.
Aye. Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second, and an early vote. Been a motion and a second, and by the way, I got it right 3 times in a row.
I know.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, matters passed unanimously. Great job. Council business, the Independent Salary Commission appointment confirmation. Deputy Mayor Honda, do you have a motion?
Well, 3's better than 4.
Yeah, restart again. All right.
I move to approve the appointment of Brian Sandler as a voting member of the Independent Salary Commission to a 4-year term to expire in February of 2021.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, next item. Item B, 2018-19 Diversity Work Plan. Staff report from Community Services Manager Jeff Watson.
Once again, good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of the council. As Federal Way has grown, one of the things that has occurred is it's become a very diverse community, diverse in terms of culture, ethnicity, et cetera. And we're very pleased to recognize that and have the Diversity Commission as a body that is here to help the city, to help the council further understand the benefits and how we can best understand and take advantage of those things. One of the things that the Diversity Commission does is on an annual basis, they develop a work plan for the things that they're going to be focused on in the coming year. The Diversity Commission has adopted a work plan and asked for council's acceptance of that work plan. And at this point in time, I'm going to turn the podium over to the Diversity Commission's Chairman, Greg Baruso, to go through the work plan.
Thank you, Joe.
Got it.
Mayor Farrell, Deputy Mayor Honda.
Thank you.
Council, it's always a pleasure to be here. Like Jeff said, I'm here to present the Diversity Commission work plan. Again, in review, we do a 2-year plan. So I'm gonna break this up into our work plan, broken up into 5 sections. First one's our values. Second one's our mission. Then we go to our brand promise, and your 2-year strategic objectives. Let's go forward. Thank you. So our values, I want to touch on them just a little bit. We have 4 of them: helpfulness, responsibility, involvement, and wisdom. Helpfulness, we expect commissioners to be willing to assist others and to help improve our community. Responsibility, maintain a high level of commissioner accountability to each other, the city government, and to our diverse community. Involvement, encourage high level of participation with others in decision-making and problem-solving. And our 4th value, wisdom. The commission shall consider larger context within its federal way and long-range impact on our community and make strategic decisions. Our mission, to advise city government to ensure federal way is a community that is united amidst diversity, where everyone is equally respected, valued, needed, and cherished. Equality is not sameness, it is equivalent value. Our brand promise, Diversity Commission dedicated to helping Federal Way become a city where all people have a feeling of belonging and sharing community, where there is equal access to information and resources for all, and where there are equal opportunities for all. Our last one, our 2-year strategic objectives. The City Federal Way Diversity Commission shall engage with Federal Way residents and businesses at the neighborhood level during the next 2 years. The intention is to build the Commission's knowledge about local and regional equity issues facing our city's residents. We will document this knowledge and use it to achieve our mission. So our 4 aspects, our 4 target areas that we have in our work plan. Number 1, the Diversity Commission will gather input from the community regarding equity and diversity issues in the city, thus building the Commission's understanding and focusing future work plans to address these issues. Our 2nd target, the Diversity Commission will remain visible and relevant to all members of the community through its participation and or sponsoring of events and activities that promote the mission and purpose of the Commission. Number 3, the Diversity Commission will visit or invite to its meetings individuals, groups, or organizations engaged in work the Commission charged to carry out, what we are carried out to do. And our 4th one, provide time on the agenda for potential action or gain awareness on timely local, regional, state, and federal trends and activities pertaining to equity and diversity initiatives. I just want to comment on our work plan. As you know, we do review our work plan every 2 years. There are some items on our work plan that have carried over from our ones before. And so, but we do improve it. We've worked on this work plan since I've been on the Commission, and this is one of the most comprehensive and detailed work plan that we've had since I've been on the Commission for almost 10 years now. So I ask that you please approve our work plan for our 2018-2019 year, and I look forward to working with all of you to see our work plan fruition and through.
Councilmember Moore? Thank you. Great job. Councilmember Moore?
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. At the Parks and Human Services and Public Safety Committee, I was pleased that my colleagues were able to support the idea of having you, the Chairman Greg Baruso, to come and present this. And as I studied your plan, as I looked at it, and having looked at other great work plans, I was really impressed with the high level of attention you guys put in your plan. So I just wanted to say thank you for the amount of details and the specifics that you put in here. And as I looked at the plan, I have to say that I'm impressed with how in tune it is with our society around in Federal Way. So I appreciate that factor, and I just appreciate the work that you guys have done. I mean, I've seen the Diversity Commission, as I've said in the committee, literally transform. And you and I have been in contact during that transformation period of time. And I'm pleased with the amount of diverse individuals of thought process and ideas and approach to how they look at their issues that are important to them for this commission. So I'm really impressed with how far we've come with this commission. And last but not least, I have to say, I've seen your leadership in this, Greg, and you have been a phenomenal, patient leader through the goods and the bads. And I think it's a testament to the fact that your colleagues have essentially reelected you, reappointed you, I don't know what word to use, as chair. So keep up the good work, and if there's anything I can do, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Moore. I just want to comment, Mayor, that, this body of work that was done by everyone on the commission. There's a few people on the subcommittees that have worked on this, put a lot of time into this. And so what you see before you is that work and time, just like you said, that we have put in. And again, this is the most detailed and comprehensive one that we have as a commission. And we're going to do our best to follow our work plan, but we also need some help. So.
And thank you, Greg, for your work on this.
Thank you, Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Honda.
Thank you very much. I was on the Diversity Commission along with Greg and was chair at one time, and this is a great work plan, and thank you for staying for so long tonight to present it to us. I would like to invite you, not only your commission members and yourself, but other commission members of other commissions to come to the Parks and Human Services Committee meeting and just report to the committee what you're doing in your commissions, because when I was chair of the Arts and the Diversity Commission, I would do that quite often so that the council members would hear what we were doing. And you don't have to come, but you could send somebody. But it's just, once a month, talk for a few minutes, let us know what you're doing in your commission, and it would be really a great thing.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
But thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you.
Councilmember Johnson, and then Councilmember Cephedason.
She can go first. I'm just ready to make a...
Councilmember Cephedason.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for the work plan. And
Jim.
In reading your the longer version, one of the things that you are talking about is one of the ways of addressing the issues is like implement actions and then surveys, doing the surveys, and then you also have compile and evaluate all informal gatherings and survey and group meetings or facilitated gatherings, right?
Yes.
And so I just want to ask about languages. Are these going to be translated into different languages when we do the survey, number one? And then when you have the gatherings, interpreters, I mean, I'm sure there'll be volunteer interpreters available to conduct those if necessary.
Yes, well, on the first point, we have had surveys where we have had different languages. We've had a few forms, and we haven't got to the point still, but we do know about the different languages we have to get to, and we're still getting work to that point. So as for, you're asking if we have any volunteers, we will be looking for some volunteers for that type of thing, yes.
So thank you very much. And then I'm looking forward to coordinated citywide multicultural events, because I think that's something that we're lacking, and it'll be something great that adds value to our community. And then also the recognition that you have partners like Advancing Leadership and other partners that you are making this a vibrant commission that serves the community at large. And I really appreciate the effort, and I look forward to the outcome of all this work that you have put together. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Kopang and then Councilmember Tran.
I tell you, I've seen a lot of work plans. Been on 3 different commissions and done 2 of them, two work plans on those commissions. But I really got excited about this one because it wasn't about a task. It wasn't about an event necessarily. It was really about a vision and how you as a commission are going to get out in the community and really, I think, do valuable work and a valuable service for the city. And I just want to thank you for your leadership, but also for thinking big. And I just encourage both you and the rest of the commission to play big in this process and really get into the community and really fulfill the work plan and the vision that it represents. And certainly, if there's a way for me to partner in this process, I know you ask, and I will answer yes. So I look forward to working with you, Greg, and I know the rest of the council does as well. So
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Tran.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you for your work on this important subject, and I appreciate all the work that members of the commission have put into this work plan. I do have a question on the work plan number 1. The Diversity Commission will gather input from the community regarding equity and diversity issues in the city. How are you going to do that? Because, I mean, there are people who live in this city that, speak multiple languages. I mean, we're talking about 100 of them. So how can we reach out to those folks when you do the survey?
Well, I'm kind of going back on the one survey we did. We were just data collecting at first, and we got to that. We did finish that one. We have some data gathered on that, and we're trying to move forward with that, Councilmember. So it is a work in progress. If you look just like Councilmember Copan was saying, if you look at the document, we did these work plans were pretty specific, which would limit us to a lot of things. So on number 1, if you have the big, you have the plan in front of you, but that is just some of the bullet points of where we're trying to get to with that. It is difficult in a way to try to get forms together. We've had forms, whether for lack of advertising or anything like that. There are not too many people that come, and so we take it upon ourselves because of that. We need to get out more, and that's one of our. That's how number 1 even came up. So as an answer for languages and things like that, we still have to get to that point and either, so we can say, yes, we're going to need some help in this. When we are successful in getting more forms together, you're right, it is a big portion. We've had forms on our work plan for probably the last 3 work plans, and we're still working on this. And so again, getting out of specifics and generalizing things, we're hoping to get to that point. I hope that answered your question. Thank you.
Very good. All right. And thank you so much again for your work. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Greg, I really do appreciate you being here, as well as Mr. Watson. I had a chance to sit down with Mr. William Yee last week and really just chat about some of the things that we really could do in the city. And I think I had the honor of participating in the MLK event a few weeks back, and I think that's just the tip of the iceberg of what we can do. And I really am interested in point number 4 and how we can use this commission to look at some of our policies through an equitable lens. And as a chair of Parks, Rec, and Human Services, I'm really interested in inviting the commission in to work on some of those things that we have at committee level. So again, I just appreciate that and you being here to present this work plan.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Do you have a motion?
Yes. So I move for approval of the 2018-2019 Diversity Commission Work Plan.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now, ordinances, first reading. Council Bill number 733, amending various sections of Title IX Federal Way Revised Code. First, we're going to have staff report by Planning Manager Robert Doc Hansen, and then we'll go from there. Doc?
Excuse me, I was... Thank you, Mayor Farrell, Deputy Mayor Honda, members of the Congress.
Hey, I like that.
I hope to make this very brief. 5 of you have seen this presentation previously, so I will go through it as fast as I can. This is a a proposal that has been in making for approximately 7 months, and we're culminating with this reading and the second reading. There's 8 different issues that are being addressed. It's gone through this entire process, the SEPA process, et cetera. On February 5th, we had an LUTC meeting, 5 members that actually heard this. I would like to go over the quick issues because there's a major issue that has to be addressed and what brought this up in the first place. We intend to eliminate grid pavers from Title 19 since the SWM or Stormwater Management overrides. We have a resolution to allow landscapers of all different professions to complete landscape plans, which is not allowed right now within Title 19. We also wish to change the language that ensure that buildings are landscaped if it does not meet property boundary. Change references, incorrect references, or make reference to the code and Federal Way development standards administered by Public Works instead of making that reference an incorrect reference within Title 19. And change the language ensuring that side yards on the corner lots, there's a confusion as to whether they're 5 yards or 10 yards. And finally, to allow public utilities and business, community business zones and commercial enterprise zones. They're allowed in all other zones, but not within Title 9, within these 2 zones. Now, the major issue that I wish to bring to the council's attention is that we have a major industry within the state of Washington, which is wineries and breweries. It's not addressed specifically within our code at this particular time. I anticipate that there is a demand for small wineries and breweries which are compatible under certain conditions within our suburban estate zone. And in hearing before Planning Commission and also in bringing this up before LUTC, it is suggested that all wineries, breweries, and distilleries be allowed without a cap. There is a cap with small wineries and a definition that they all be allowed within the commercial zones. The ordinance that was presented to the LUTC committee 2 weeks ago was amended to indicate that within all commercial zones so that all wineries, breweries, and distilleries are allowed in commercial zones, and the caps on production only occurs within suburban estates. We have a definition of small wineries, small breweries, and small distilleries. And again, the cap, all of those will not be capped within commercial zones if this ordinance is passed. We made the changes that are requested by the LUTC, which is to, within the tables to strike the micro words in front of breweries, distilleries, and wineries. With that, I will answer any questions and take any comments.
All right, council, any questions? All right, would the city clerk please read the ordinance title? Thank you, Doc. Great presentation.
Council Bill 733, amending various sections of Title 19 Federal Way Revised Code, an ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington, relating to updating and clarifying Title 19 Federal Way Revised Code, the Zoning and Development Code, amending Federal Way Revised Code 19-05020, 19-05040, 19-05130, 19-05230, 19-110020, 19-125030, 19-125040, 19-125070, 19-125180, 19-135100, 19-135130, and 19-200010, and adding new sections to Chapter 19-195, 19-215, 19-220, 19-225, 19-230, and 19-240.
Councilmember Kopang.
I would like to make a motion. I motion, I move.
Don't worry, I wasn't going to call you Deputy Mayor Honda.
Okay, all right. I move to forward the proposed ordinance to the March 6, 2018 council meeting for second reading and enactment.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. All right, now, moving on to item B, Council Bill 734, McClem MCI Metro Access Transmission Services Corporation, doing business as a Verizon Access Transmission Services franchise. First, a staff report from Deputy Public Works Director Desiree Winkler, and then we'll go from there.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of the council. The policy question in front of you is, should the city grant MCI Metro Access Transmission Services Corporation, doing business as Verizon Access Transmission Services, a franchise to construct, maintain, operate, replace, and repair a telecommunications network within and through the city of Federal Way? So some background, I am going to shorten their name to Verizon Access from this point on. They have requested a franchise from the city of Federal Way in order to install and operate, maintain a telecommunications network within the city of Federal Way. The purpose of this network is to provide a fiber optic cable backhaul that may serve future small cell installations. The franchise area is all of the rights of way within the city of Federal Way. They do not have a specific proposal in front of us yet. The term of this franchise is for a period of 10 years. This is typical of all of our other franchises. They have agreed to pay the administrative expenses that have been incurred directly related to preparing and improving this franchise. These administrative expenses are offset by a $5,000 franchise fee application deposit. They will be maintaining a $5 million insurance, combined single limit for commercial general liability, and $5 million for automobile insurance. They also will post a performance bond in the amount of 120% of the value of the work performed in the right-of-way. The options before council are to approve to send Verizon Access franchise ordinance to city council meeting on March 6, 2018 for second reading and approval, or do not approve to send Verizon Access franchise ordinance to city council meeting on March 6th and provide direction to staff. And the mayor recommends approving to send Verizon Access franchise ordinance to city council meeting on March 6, 2018 for second reading and approval. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Council, any questions? All right, Councilmember Dawson.
Yeah, maybe, I just want to understand, so why do we have an ordinance if we're waiting till March 6th?
Because there's two readings.
Very good. Took me a second, too. All right.
Although sometimes we do, in an emergency, 2 readings in one night.
That was my line. All right. All right, thank you.
You want to do the suspension at 10 o'clock?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Yes. Deputy Mayor Honda, would you please make a
This
motion?
always happens to me.
I'm on a roll, man.
I'd like to suspend our council rules to go far longer than 10 o'clock tonight.
Second.
By a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we get to go late. All right. So, Council, are there any questions about any other questions about the presentation? Hearing none, would the city clerk please read the ordinance title?
Council Bill 734, MCI Metro Access Transmission Services Corp., DBA Verizon Access Transmission Services Franchise. An ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington, granting MCI Metro Access Transmission Services Corporation, DBA Verizon Access Transmission Services, a non-exclusive franchise to occupy rights of way in the City of Federal Way, Washington, within the specified franchise area for the purposes of constructing, maintaining, operating, replacing, and repairing a telecommunications network within and through the City of Federal Way.
All right. Councilmember Kopang, do you have a motion?
Yes, I move to forward the proposed ordinance to the March 6, 2018 council meeting for second reading and enactment.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, matter passes. All right, item C, Council Bill 735, Clear Wireless LLC franchise. First, we'll have Deputy Public Works Director Desiree Winkler provide a presentation, and we'll go from there.
Good evening again. The policy question before you is, should the city grant Clear Wireless LLC a franchise to install, operate, maintain, and repair wireless communication fixtures and related equipment, cables, accessories, and improvements in a portion of the rights-of-way within and through the City of Federal Way. The background is that Clear Wireless LLC has requested a franchise from us. This is at an existing location on Dash Point Road at Third Place Southwest. It was installed under a previous franchise that expired on April 17th, 2017. And this is the specific location. It is actually, first, that pole that you see there in the middle of the left picture with an antenna array. It has some conduit that comes down the pole. And then into the second picture, you see a little equipment shed in the back. So it really only covers the pole and the conduit because the shed is technically actually located on private property that they have easement from. The term of this franchise is for 10 years. The Clear Wireless LLC agrees to pay a fee and a charge of the amount of $1,000 to recover the actual reasonable administrative expenses incurred by the city directly related to preparing and approving this franchise. Clear Wireless LLC will maintain insurance of $5 million, combined single limit for commercial general liability, and $5 million for automobile insurance. The proposed franchise requires that Clear Wireless LLC post a performance bond in the amount of 120% of the value of the work performed in the right-of-way. Options before council are to approve to send Clear Wireless LLC franchise ordinance to City Council meeting on March 6, 2018 for second reading and approval. Do not approve to send Clear Wireless franchise to the March 16th meeting and provide direction to staff. And the mayor recommends to sending the Clear Wireless LLC franchise ordinance to City Council meeting on March 6, 2018 for second reading and approval. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Council, any questions? Okay. Would City Clerk please read the ordinance title?
Council Bill 735, Clear Wireless LLC franchise, an ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington, granting Clear Wireless LLC, a Nevada limited liability company, a non-exclusive franchise to occupy rights-of-way of the City of Federal Way, Washington, within the specified franchise area for the purposes of installation, operation, maintenance, and repair of its wireless communication fixtures and related equipment, cables, accessories, and improvements in a portion of the rights-of-way within and through the City of Federal Way.
All right, Councilmember Kopang, do you have a motion?
Yes, I do. I move to forward the proposed ordinance to the March 6, 2018 council meeting for second reading and enactment.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. As, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, matter passes. All right, we're on to council reports. Councilmember Duclos.
I have a very short report. The next meeting of the Finance, Economic Development, and Regional Affairs Committee will be at on the 27th of the month at 4:30 in the Hylabus Room, and we will be discussing some issues about the regional impact of the airport and what's going on and getting an update on that, among, of course, the money issues and stuff like that. So, and that's it for me.
Thank you. Councilmember Moore.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. As always with the tradition, I have a 30-minute report. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. That joke's getting old, isn't it?
I got a gong back here.
All right. Moving forward. Tonight obviously was a good meeting, as all council meetings. We certainly heard from passionate folks with regards to homelessness. This is a very big issue. I'm of course, there's a lot of other issues, but this is a top issue of concern, I think, with people. I think it's safe to assume that. And so I'm going to continue to encourage for there to be a plan, a strategy, a written plan in terms of how does Federal Way work towards reducing homelessness and solve our problems. And I think I really do believe that Federal Way could be a leader in this in King County. And it's my dream, it's my goal that King County looks to Federal Way for answers and how we solve this. And so I'm looking forward to doing what I can to support you, Mr. Mayor, in that, and of course, to my council colleagues. on that. And so in that plan, I would actually like to call for for us to address panhandling. And I know that you have one of your goals, which is taken from Albuquerque, New Mexico, which I'm really thrilled for, because I know it's something I talked about, I believe now 2 council retreats, about perhaps playing a role in hiring people that are homeless. And so specifically, one of my proposals is for us to take a first phase and looking at potential signage and putting it around in hotspots that are encouraging people to give to nonprofits versus giving out money to potentially homeless people or people of poverty. So that's something I'm happy to talk more about, but that is something that I would like to see, for us to look into and research. And so I'll be talking more about that in the next several weeks. Moving forward, I was really pleased that 2 individuals mentioned the name Greg Vickers. He is just one of many people that have made a footprint in our community. He's left, I think, a legacy, and he certainly will be greatly missed. I know that we've all had a point of contact with Greg, perhaps. I don't know about our 2 newest council members or not, but Greg was just very passionate individual. He was very committed to our community, and he was a very strong advocate when it came to human services. And I know that he was one that held me accountable in a lot of ways. And so I'm going to miss him a great deal, and it's just too bad to see cancer do this, because quite frankly, Greg wasn't done with his work. And so we've got to continue that effort and that work in his honor and quite frankly, for the good of our people here in Federal Way. I know that Chairman Johnson, has a nice little ring to it, did a great job with his first chairing of the meeting of the Parks and Human Services and Public Safety. I hope you framed my little notes. Framed, I doubt it, actually, never mind, you didn't frame it. But it was a lot of fun, and we enjoyed it. And I really have to say I enjoyed that meeting particularly because we dove deep into one policy matter that I'm looking forward to addressing and looking at the next phase of that. And so that was great. And then I also got to chair my first LTAC meeting. That's right, you can call me Mr. LTAC. And so there are a lot of events that are coming up in the summertime. And I'm looking forward to getting those events out so the people know that we're doing it. We're hosting we're playing a role in hosting the Special Olympics USA Games. And so more information will come out for that. And there are plenty of other activities that are happening. With that, Mr. Mayor, I think I will end my report.
All right. Councilmember Copay.
Not too bad, Martin.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, not even.
You need the content, right?
I wanted to start by telling a quick story. During the winds on Sunday, I had a 60-foot tree fall over in my yard. And it's a big tree. We didn't hear it, but our neighbors saw it. And the cool thing about this, the reason I'm relaying this story, or telling you about the story, is because within about an hour and a half, my neighbors had come and helped me get that tree cleared out well enough that we could actually have access to our driveway and our neighbor's driveway. So again, that's just another example of the way our community does come together. And that's another great example, obviously, was Officer Frank Martin's fundraiser. Was happy to attend that and see a community come together to support a family that really is in crisis and really dealing with a loss now, but with a little more, I think, understanding of the care of this community in the fact that we came together to give to that cause, but also to celebrate Officer Martin. I have just one thing that I want to talk about in particular tonight, and that's in light of the shooting, the school shooting down in Parkland, Florida. I think that's a good reminder to us as a community of the good work that was done by the community of volunteers that staffed the Violence Prevention Coalition Steering Committee. They made a number of recommendations, and I think it really is incumbent on us to implement as many of those recommendations as we can before tragedy strikes. And I know that partnership with the school districts is an element of that, but again, I think we've done a lot of work around this issue, and I think the council has approved this unanimously, so now it's just a matter of what the next steps are, and I look forward to seeing what we can do as a community to come together to make sure those issues are addressed as proactively as possible. I wanted to finish up by looking forward and saying that I am going to be touring some distressed rental units with the Washington Can volunteers, and definitely looking forward to getting a better understanding of some of the hardships that are being incurred by members of our community because of substandard rental units. Also, we'll be attending the Rotary Gala this Saturday night. Great organization, happy to partner with them in creating solutions for our community. And last but not least, land use. We usually do the Land Use and Transportation Committee on the first Monday of the month. We are going to do it on the second Monday, so we'll be on March 12th this month. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
All right. Councilor Bertrand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last 2 weeks, I had an opportunity to attend several community events. The first one was the Winter Olympics viewing party with members of the Fairway Korean American Association, the deputy mayor, and a few other city staff were there. We really enjoyed the event. I feel so proud of our own Olympians, JR and Aaron, and I think as a city, we should do something to honor their achievements. The second event was the benefit dinner for our late Officer Frank Martin. And I was touched by the support the community and his friends have given him and his family. May he rest in peace, and may his family find comfort knowing the community is behind them. I also attended several Lunar New Year celebration with the Korean American Association and the Vietnamese American Association in Fairway, Tacoma, Seattle. And as you know, Lunar New Year is the most important day for Asian community. It is the day we pay respect to our ancestors, honor our elders, recognize our youth, and set direction for our future. So with that said, I would like to take this opportunity to wish Mayor Farrell, Deputy Mayor Honda, members of the council, city staff, and Fairway residents a new year with good health, happiness, and lasting prosperity.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to start by thanking Finance Director Ade, Deputy Director Desiree Winkler, and also the Diversity Commission for their presentations to us as a council today. I think that was a lot of great information. And I also can't thank our city staff enough for the work that they do to brief us and provide us up-to-date information. So thank you all for that. I had the opportunity yesterday on President's Day to go down to Olympia for African American Legislative Day, and it was really cool to see many of the Federal parents bringing their kids down to Olympia on a day off to see what it's like down there at the state capitol. So that was really encouraging, and I couldn't be more proud of a lot of our parents. I think we had probably about 30 to 40 Federal youth down there for that event. Next, I also wanted to just kind of, again, echo Councilmember Kopang's sentiments in regards to Officer Frank Martin and also the rest of my colleagues. I think that it's, always tough to lose a family member, and I send my prayers and condolences to them. And thankful that our mayor gets a chance to go down for the funeral in Sunnyside, so that's really awesome. Finally, Really just wanted to, again, stress the importance of public engagement around some of these issues. So as we saw tonight with homelessness, it's a complex issue, and I think as a council, we really have a fiduciary responsibility to look at it through multiple lenses, and I think we got that opportunity to hear from businesses and folks that are advocates for the homeless in our community. So I just hope that we continue to get more ideas, and I think I can say that all of us are open to ideas around that issue. So again, just thank the community members that were present tonight.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Sepidus.
Thank you, Mayor. I too just wanted to echo the sentiment around what was said today during public comments, especially around homelessness. And when we talk about it, especially when we have public comment, I think the root causes of homelessness is something that we need to address. And so one of the things, like when we're clearing the encampment, I wonder, and I don't know if you're doing this, but service agencies like Union Gospel Mission could come and maybe offer the next steps to the people who are being displaced. Because, I don't know, someone said they need a place to go, and where do you go? And especially this weekend when it was very cold and snowy, I was really thinking about people who are out who have nowhere to go. And so I think, and you've talked about compassion, and so let's not forget that. And it was mentioned that only 100 people found housing and employment, I think, earlier out of 1,100 that were served. 100 people is a huge number. And I think we should thank Catholic Community Services or the agencies who provided that, because it's 100 people less that are probably suffering out there today. And it was also mentioned that rent increase, we can't keep up with the increase. And so the issue's there, it's not going away. So I think if we're transparent and if we include and involve our communities in the conversation and dialogue, have ongoing conversation, maybe it won't be at this meeting that people would come and vent and share their frustrations. I think it would be, I don't know, we should probably find a better and different venue to address that, and Weyerhaeuser, because sometimes I think people feel like we're not being transparent enough, and staff is doing a great job, and I appreciate all the work that you're putting into it, and I'm sure you're following the policies that need to be said and done. But the public doesn't always see that. So whatever it takes for that transparency, I think would be very helpful. And lastly, Greg Vickers. I also, when I came on council, he was a huge supporter, a person I had a chance to meet with, talk to on different occasions. Very helpful, very supportive, and I believe Federal Way just experienced a huge loss. And I'm sorry, and including Officer Martin, also a huge loss to our community. So just like everyone else, send my condolences to both families. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Honda.
Today I attended a skateboard meeting, and Metro and King County Metro and Sound Transit are conducting a public outreach about the concept of reserved permit parking for transit customers at some park and ride facilities. They're doing a survey, and I had that forwarded to you tonight, so you guys can participate in the survey if you like. And they are also having some drop-in sessions. They will be in Federal Way on Sunday, March 11th from 3:30 to 5:30 at the Federal Way Library on First Avenue. If anybody would like to drop in and talk to them about your ideas or your concerns with parking in Federal Way and trying to take transit, because it's really hard. And I'm going to say a little bit something about Weyerhaeuser. I have appreciated the Save Weyerhaeuser folks. They have been here every single meeting for at least 18 months since this started, the fish factory issue started. And not only are they here, but they're having regular meetings with community members, with staff, our staff, with King County, with Forterra, with anyone who will listen to them, with the state. They met with Governor Inslee. My husband has worked at Weyerhaeuser for 40 years, and he has been at the tech center since the day that the tech center opened. And he has never once seen a homeless camp there or anyone homeless sleeping there. Security has always been very tight. Even as his spouse, I couldn't go into the building without having an escort because of the things that they were working on. If you drive by and you look at what has happened, it's heartbreaking and it's very sad for our community. When this first started, this chamber was packed with people, and we had people that were talking to us that were coming from out of town to walk the paths and to be a part of the Weyerhaeuser property. So it's not just affecting those of us who live here in Federal Way, but it's affecting the region. I know that we can do better, and I'm hoping that we do better. Today, IRG started clearing parts of the parking lot out, some brush and trees in the parking lot. And I doubt very much that anyone who's homeless is sleeping in the parking lot. So anyway, I appreciate all that the Save Weyerhaeuser folks are doing. I appreciate what our staff is doing. This isn't an easy issue. The city doesn't own the property. Weyerhaeuser doesn't own the property. IRG owns the property. And I'm hoping that IRG and the city and the community can all work together and sit down at a table and say, this doesn't work for our community. Let's come up with a solution so that we can save this property, so that IRG can get some business, and that our kids and our grandchildren can enjoy the property the way that we've enjoyed it. And I'd just like to close with saying that, you know, we have many issues and concerns here in the city of Federal Way, and I'd encourage anyone to call or email me if you have any questions or if you just want to talk. Everyone sitting up here is here because we want to help, and everyone sitting up here would respond to your calls or your emails. So please, if something's concerning you, it should concern us. So let us know, because we're here to help. And I'd like to thank you all for staying so long tonight. It's been a long meeting. We've been here since 5 o'clock. And we're a hardworking group of people, and I appreciate all the work that these folks on council and the mayor does, along with our staff. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Great meeting. With that, we are adjourned. Desiree and Brian and Ryan.